Chapter 1222. After Wen Shiqi got the news, he rushed to Huaguang Temple while sending a message to Wen Shiqi. He came on horseback very fast, but someone was faster than him. Especially when he saw that only a small part of the road was left, Wen Shiqi had to rein the horse. Prince Chen's carriage was almost twice as wide as an ordinary carriage. Prince Chen leisurely reclined in the carriage, and the carriage was not slow. But even so, Wen Shiqi was still anxious and followed behind. He really couldn't wait, so he had to take a few steps forward and catch up with the guards behind the carriage. He cupped his hands to the guard and said, "Your Highness, please report that Wen Shiqi wants to see you." Wen Shiqi's strength was extraordinary, and his father was the Prime Minister. The guard did not dare to neglect him and immediately went to report. After a while, he came out and cupped his hands to Wen Shiqi and said, "Lord Wen, our prince wants to see you." Wen Shiqi jumped off the horse. After throwing the reins to the servant, he strode to the carriage and cupped his hands to Chu Luqian in the carriage. The curtain was lifted. Chu Luqian narrowed his eyes and asked lazily, "What's the matter, third young master Wen?" "Something happened to my mother in the temple on the mountain. I want to go up the mountain to see her as soon as possible," Wen Shiqi said with a serious face. "Something happened to Madame Wen?" Chu Luqian frowned slightly and said, "Do I need to call an imperial physician? I happen to bring one here." "Thank you, Your Highness, but I don't need it for the time being." "Can I go first?" Wen Shiqi said. "It doesn't matter. Lord Wen, please go first." Chu Luqian was very easy to talk to. After giving the order, the carriage stopped for a while. Wen Shiqi thanked Chu Luqian again, turned over and mounted the horse to go up the mountain. Was Prince Chen really as special as his father said? Wen Shiqi was surprised that Prince Chen was so easy to talk to. He pursed his thin lips to hide the darkness at the bottom of his eyes. He took a deep breath and suppressed the unwillingness in his heart. After he left, Chu Luqian ordered the carriage to go up the mountain again and let it speed up. Wen Shiqi whipped his horse up the mountain and hurried to Madame of the Prime Minister's residence. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Gu Shishu rushing out in tears. He dodged to the side and avoided her. Gu Shishu stood unsteadily and almost fell. The servant girl standing behind her was smart and hurried forward to pull her up. The two of them swayed, but fortunately, they stood firm. "Third cousin. It's my fault. I wanted to come up the mountain to offer incense, but I caused such a big thing to happen to Aunt. Third cousin, please punish me." Gu Shishu cried like a pear blossom in the rain. Her clothes seemed to be a little messy, and a few strands of hair fell down. Inexplicably, Ding Ning felt that this kind of messiness was a little delicate, which made Gu Shishu look more beautiful than before. "What about my mother?" Wen Shiqi's gaze did not fall on Gu Shishu at all. Of course, he would not see her carefully dressed, beautiful appearance. He walked in with big strides. "Third cousin." Gu Shishu hurriedly chased after him and almost fell in a hurry. Finally, she followed Wen Shiqi in and saw her mother saluting Wen Shiqi. "Third cousin, this is..." Gu Shishu still wanted to introduce Wen Shiqi to her mother, but she saw Wen Shiqi go in like a gust of wind, ignoring her standing at the door. Her mother raised her head and signaled to Gu Shishu. Gu Shishu hurriedly chased after him. Seeing Madame of the Prime Minister lying on the bed, Wen Shiqi's face changed dramatically. He took 2 steps forward and reached out to put his hand on Madame of the Prime Minister's arm. "Shiqi is here. I'm fine." Hearing the voice, Madame of the Prime Minister opened her eyes and said softly, "Mother, let me feel your pulse." Wen Shiqi stretched out his hand. Although his medical skills were not good, he still knew some basic pulse feeling. "I'm really fine. Fortunately, Shishu and her mother are here today." "You should thank them later," Madame of the Prime Minister said weakly. Wen Shiqi's hand fell from Madame of the Prime Minister's wrist, and his handsome eyebrows slightly relaxed. His mother's injury had basically stabilized. "Third cousin, it's all because Aunt Lu sent a ginseng. Otherwise, it would have been a big deal." The imperial physician said that we were very lucky. Gu Shishu had already come in. At this time, she said softly. Holding the handkerchief in her hand, she lowered her head and blamed herself. It's all my fault that I didn't take good care of Aunt. Otherwise, such a thing wouldn't have happened to Aunt. How can it be your fault? Who knew that I would step on nothing? It's my own carelessness. It's not your fault. Madam of the Prime Minister comforted her. Aunt. Gu Shishu's eyes turned red again. It's me, what the hell is going on? When Shichi impatiently interrupted Gu Shishu and his eyes fell on the woman who followed Gu Shishu in. When she was at the door of the mistress's room just now, she saluted to him. Is this Xiao Jing's mistress? It is said that she is the daughter of the former imperial censor who was lost in the capital. Being interrupted by Wen Shichi, Gu Shishu panicked for a moment and looked at Madam of the Prime Minister pitifully. Aunt, third cousin, Shichi, fortunately, it's Shishu and Enyang today. Don't scare them. They are both timid. Madam of the Prime Minister defended them at first sight. Where did you get the ginseng? When Shichi looked at Enyang without blinking. After looking her up and down for a long time, he suddenly said. It's mine. Enyang had to answer. Third cousin. Gu Shishu wanted to continue but was interrupted by Wen Shichi rudely. Cousin, I have to figure out the cause and effect of this matter. Why do you keep hindering me from asking questions? His words made Gu Shishu speechless. She could only lower her head and clench the handkerchief in her hand with a guilty conscience. Third cousin is so smart. Will he see something? Why didn't second cousin come today? If it was second cousin, no matter what I said, he would believe it. With his words, Aunt would be more convinced that Enyang was her savior. Later, Aunt would introduce Gu Shishu to a madam of a noble family, who was much better than me. And the most important thing is that even if Enyang gets married in the future, it has nothing to do with me. After all, it is Aunt who will introduce her. Aunt is injured, so I can show my filial piety. Of course, third cousin is not interested in marriage. His marriage has been delayed again and again. I will definitely make Aunt agree to marry third cousin. This can be said to kill two birds with one stone. When Gu Shishu took action, she had thought about this clearly. But now she was really flustered. She kept clenching the handkerchief in her hand and subconsciously paid attention to the conversation between Wen Shichi and Enyang. Enyang should be more experienced than me, so it is impossible for her to give herself away, right? Excuse me, why did you go up the mountain with ginseng? I heard that it is 100-year-old ginseng. Wen Shichi asked impolitely. His eyes fell on Gu Shishu's hand. She was used to it. Maybe she didn't care about it very much. Every time she was flustered, she would clench the handkerchief hard. I happened to sell the ginseng to nurse my health. I brought it up the mountain because I wanted to spend some quiet time on the mountain and nurse my health. Enyang lowered her head. Although there was still a smile on her face, it was very bitter. It was obvious that she had something to say. Nurse your health? Why do you need to nurse your health? When Shichi raised his eyebrows. Enyang lowered her head more and more. My health is not very good. I need to nurse my health, so speaking of this, Enyang seemed to come to her senses. She raised her head in astonishment, looked at Wen Shichi, and then looked at Madam of the Prime Minister lying on the bed. She stretched out her fingers and suddenly understood. Does Lord Wen suspect me of something? I don't know Madam of the Prime Minister. How could I plot against her? What's more, I can't go to Madam of the Prime Minister. Speaking of this, her face had turned pale with anger. She bowed sideways to Madam of the Prime Minister lying on the bed. Madam Wen, if you really think so, I will go back first. It was just a coincidence. If Lord Wen doesn't like this coincidence, it is my fault. Didn't like this coincidence? In other words, Wen Shichi didn't want her to save Madam of the Prime Minister by coincidence? Her words were a little guilty. Lying in bed, Madam of the Prime Minister was in poor health. Hearing her words, she flew into a rage. She sat up with the help of an old maid, patted the edge of the bed with one hand, and said angrily, "Shichi, what do you mean? Do you think she shouldn't have saved me? Or do you think I shouldn't have survived the disaster?" Thinking that she had almost lost her life, Madame Wen was overcome with sorrow and tears immediately fell. "Shichi, I thought you were in such a hurry to go up the mountain because you were concerned about my health, but it turns out that you suspected someone else's intention in saving me. What intention could someone have after saving me? Could it be that Yi and Yang harmed me?" Speaking of this, the more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. She suddenly burst into tears. When Shichi didn't expect things to turn out like this. He glanced coldly at Gu Shimei and Yi and Yang's faces. He was sure that there was something fishy going on, but he couldn't ignore his mother's crying. His mother couldn't stand any torment now. If something really happened to her, he would regret it very much. "Mother, don't cry. I just want to make it clear. I don't really want to suspect anyone." When Shichi comforted Madam of the Prime Minister and pulled at his lapel. After going up the mountain covered with dust, his lapel was still wet. "Mother, if I didn't care about you, why would I rush up the mountain on horseback? I was afraid that father would be worried, so I sent a message to him." Seeing that his attitude had softened, Madam of the Prime Minister felt a little better. She didn't really want to make a fuss. She knew that her son also cared about her. Looking at his tired face, he was still wearing the official uniform of the Ministry of Justice. Knowing that he came directly from the Ministry of Justice after getting the news, she felt sorry for him again. Among her 3 sons, this one was the most promising and the one she liked the most. "Son, I really owe Yi and Yang this time. It's not an exaggeration to say that she saved my life. You can't interrogate her like you did in the Ministry of Justice. You should thank her properly." Madam of the Prime Minister wiped away her tears and stopped making a fuss. "Mother, don't worry. I will definitely thank her properly." When Shichi agreed without hesitation with a deep look in his eyes, Gu Shishu and Yi Yang, "Very good." Chapter 12:23. Dr. Chiu had always been the busiest doctor, from Prime Minister Wen's mansion to Marquis Xing's mansion, then to Prince Zhou's mansion, and then to the Imperial Palace. However, he didn't live a good life in the Imperial Palace. On the one hand, there were too many rules in the Imperial Palace, which made him very unfree. On the other hand, the Imperial physicians in the Imperial Palace didn't like him very much. The Imperial physicians formed their own system, and the new ones who entered the Imperial Palace would also become Imperial physicians. Only Dr. Chiu was different. He was sent in by Prince Zhou to treat the Empress. Unlike those Imperial physicians who entered the Imperial Palace in the past, those Imperial physicians would inevitably be included in the Imperial physician system after entering the Imperial Palace, no matter what the reason was. When Prince Zhou sent him to the Imperial Palace, he had said that he would only send him for a period of time, which meant that Dr. Chiu would eventually go back. Originally, it was only a few days, so the Imperial physicians in the Imperial Palace didn't care. But now this period of time was infinitely extended because of the Empress. This made the Imperial physicians more and more displeased with Dr. Chiu. No matter how they looked at him, Dr. Chiu seemed to be an outsider, and his behavior made people feel that he was sneaky. Before, the Empress protected him, so no one dared to say anything. Now the Empress couldn't even protect herself, so how could she protect him? Dr. Chiu's life in the Imperial Palace became difficult. Not only did the Imperial physicians dislike him, but even the S wanted to deal with him because of the Empress. Dr. Chiu was very smart. He made a mistake and was sent back to Prince Zhou's mansion after being beaten. Since the matter had been settled, it was unwise to stay in the Imperial Palace. Compared with Prince Zhou's mansion, it was the safest place for him. A small beating could not kill him. Dr. Chiu saw it very clearly. The Empress couldn't protect herself, so she was very low-key now. Even if something happened to him, she wouldn't help him. It was better to save himself. Moreover, he was very successful in saving himself. A small palace sedan chair sent him out of the imperial palace. Dr. Chiu, who was half lying in the sedan chair, was very proud and in a good mood, although it was inconvenient for him to turn around. The sedan chair suddenly stopped, and Dr. Chiu was slightly surprised. Shouldn't they have arrived at Prince Zhou's mansion at this time? He frowned and wanted to speak. Suddenly, the sedan chair door was opened, and the light from outside came in, making him unable to see the face of the person clearly for a moment. He only felt that it was a man, and then everything went black, and he was covered in a black bag. Who are you? Dr. Chiu was horrified and struggled desperately. The sack was very big, and the person who came was also very agile. After putting the sack on Dr. Chiu, the person pulled it down and wrapped Dr. Chiu's whole body. Then, Dr. Chiu was scolded heavily on his head and Dr. Chiu fainted. When he woke up again, Dr. Chiu moved his hands and feet with difficulty. His hands and feet were tied up, and he could not move at all. There were still injuries on his body, and the pain became more and more intense. He gritted his teeth and looked around. It was an ordinary house, and he couldn't tell what this place was. Who wanted to deal with him? Inside or outside the palace? In fact, there were only a few people who dared to fight with Prince of Zhou's men, but he couldn't afford to offend any of them. Dr. Chiu was very flustered. Are you awake? The voice came from behind a screen in front of him. The sound of footsteps came from behind the screen. A guard walked out and sized him up with a cold gaze. This kind of coldness was not only on the guard's face. Dr. Chiu had experienced that this kind of coldness came from the evil spirit. Such a strong evil spirit was by no means an ordinary guard. It could be said that such a guard was not ordinary. At least he didn't see such a guard around Prince of Zhou. A guard with such a strong evil spirit. Who are you? Dr. Chiu shrank and his face turned pale with fear. Tell me who you are. The guard looked down at him and asked. I'm an imperial physician in the palace. No, I'm a doctor sent to the palace by Prince of Zhou to treat the empress. Dr. Chiu didn't understand the meaning of the guard's question and replied tremblingly. Are you Prince Yu's man? The guard raised the corner of his mouth sarcastically and sneered. He took out a soft whip from his waist and lashed it on the ground. No, I'm Prince of Zhou's man. Dr. Chiu was very afraid, but he didn't dare to say anything. Some words could get him killed. Although he had killed a few people, it didn't mean that he wasn't afraid of death. In fact, he was more afraid of death than anyone else, so he wanted to find a powerful backer. Otherwise, he would be beaten to death if he killed someone. I heard that you are related to the cousin Miss of Prime Minister Wen's mansion. Was it the cousin Miss of Prime Minister Wen's mansion who recommended you to Marquis Xing's mansion? The guard ignored his words and stood with his back to the light, with an ambiguous look. Yes. Dr. Chiu stammered. He was not afraid of investigation. Did you kill Miss Wang of Marquis Xing's mansion? Who asked you to kill her? The guard changed the topic again, which seemed to have nothing to do with the previous one. Dr. Chiu's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Did someone still dig up Wang Yishu's death? Wang Xingxue was also dead. How could someone dig up Wang Yishu's death? Well, Dr. Chiu said. If you want to lie, you can break one of your hands. This whip has killed a lot of people. Today, you can use it to smash your hand. The guard said slowly. There was even a smile on his face, but the smile made people feel cold from the bottom of their hearts. Yes, it was Madame Jiang's order. Dr. Chiu gritted his teeth and confessed Madame Jiang. Anyway, Madame Jiang was dead now, so it didn't matter if the matter was dug up again. What's the use of Madame Jiang asking someone to kill Wang Yishu? The guard played with the whip in his hand and said. She wants to frame Princess Chen and let her bear the responsibility for killing Miss Wang. Since he had said it, it was not so difficult to say the next words. Even if this matter was found out, so what? The victim and the murderer were dead. He was just a doctor. Even if he made a small mistake, Prince Zhou could protect him. Moreover, he had to tell the truth at this time. A wise man submits to facts. Now that he was not dead, it was better to be obedient. However, when he asked this question, Dr. Chiu was a little relieved. I heard that you have been studying some strange medicine many years ago. When did you develop the medicine of fake death? The guard suddenly changed the topic. The topic changed too fast. When Dr. Chiu was a little relieved, he subconsciously felt that the next question would not be too difficult, so he hurriedly said, more than 10 years ago. Speaking of this, he stopped in astonishment, and Dr. Chiu widened his eyes in fear. You developed it more than 10 years ago, right? The guard suddenly squatted down and looked at him with a pair of cold eyes, making him feel as if he were being stared at by a viper. No, what medicine of fake death? I don't understand what you are talking about. Dr. Chiu's eyes widened, and he unconsciously struggled to explain. You don't understand? The guard suddenly smiled and stood up. The whip in her hand fell fiercely on his back, causing him to let out a blood-curdling scream and almost pass out. Wherever the whip passed, the pain became so intense that he could only scream for a moment, and then he couldn't even make a sound. He was in extreme pain. Tell me, what happened to Xiao Yanru? Why is she still alive and secretly meeting Marquis Xing? The guard said with a sneer and raised the whip in his hand high again, as if he didn't want him to say more and just wanted to find a random topic to kill him once. The whip fell heavily. It was another piercing pain. Dr. Chiu was in so much pain that he could hardly think, but his mind was very clear. What did it mean? Did it mean that he saw Xiao Yanru appear? Did it mean that all the facts were there? Of course, he had said that Xiao Jing would never appear again. Xiao Jing had promised him and said that Xiao Jing had never appeared in front of the public for so many years. He thought that Xiao Jing was trustworthy, so he helped Xiao Yanru. Unexpectedly, he was discovered as soon as he left the imperial palace. Xiao Yanru was really a woman who never cried when she succeeded, but was good at spoiling things. He shouldn't have helped her at the beginning. This woman had a pair of ambitious eyes and was fickle. At first glance, he could tell that she was not a good person. I'll tell you. After the sharp pain subsided a little, Dr. Chiu endured the sharp pain and said loudly. Since they all knew it, there was no need for him to hide it. He had said everything he could in order to stall for time and get reinforcements. What happened next was much simpler. Lord Chiu told him everything about Xiao Yanru in detail and said that someone in the imperial palace helped Xiao Yanru, but he didn't know this person. It should be a powerful person. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to find him without letting him know and help Xiao Yanru plan. He wrote several pieces of paper about the part that Dr. Chiu knew. When he finished, Dr. Chiu had lost his strength in pain and fainted. The guard took the paper and looked at it with satisfaction. Then he asked someone to untie Dr. Chiu and give him some food, but he couldn't be killed for the time being. What Dr. Chiu told appeared on Chu Liuchen's desk. Looking at the statement on the paper, Chu Liuchen slightly raised the corner of his eyes with a faint smile. The fake death medicine. It was a plan developed by Mingqiu Nun and Qi Ju together. It turned out to be the fake death medicine. Xiao Yanru was really not simple. She could escape after entering the imperial palace. Of course, Xiao Yanru alone was not enough. There were also Chu Luyue and Chu Liuzhou, and even Prince Cheng and another group of people. His slender fingers gently tapped on the table a few times, and the handsome Mao's face was cold and fierce. Did you ask him about what happened more than a decade ago? Master, he didn't say it. He just said that he had just developed it and he didn't know it more than a decade ago. Besides, he didn't go to the capital city at that time. Xiao Xuanzi reported, if I ask him again, he will faint. I'll ask him again after he recovers for a period of time. Eat and drink well and recover as soon as possible. Then I'll ask him again after he recovers. If he can't recover, I'll beat him again after he recovers. Chu Yuchen said coldly. A person who had been beaten all the time might be able to endure it. But if he recovered, he would be beaten again and again. How many people could bear it? He meant that he wouldn't stop until he got the answer. Xiao Xuanzi secretly lit a candle for Dr. Chiu. He could only say that Dr. Chiu was too unlucky to provoke his master. Chapter 12:24. After visiting the Empress Dowager, Chu Luqian took Xiao Wanru to the back of the mountain. The scenery at the back of the mountain was good. In particular, there were not many people in the purple bamboo forest, so not everyone could come here. Chu Luqian held Xiao Wanru's hand with his big hand, and their wide sleeves fell down. Even so, Xiao Wanru felt quite embarrassed. With a little shyness in her watery eyes, she looked even more watery. Xiao Xuanzi and Yujie stayed far away from them so as not to disturb their peace. The sound of falling leaves under their feet was not loud, but it was peaceful. After a long while, Xiao Wanru said softly, "Gu Shishu made such a scene today, and Madam of the Prime Minister is more and more obedient to her now. I should be her favorite now." Chu Luqian nodded and said with a bit of sarcasm, "Madam of the Prime Minister really trusts her niece very much." Did she trust her niece too much? Xiao Wanru inexplicably remembered that she was driven out. Because her lips were naturally red, people said that she put on makeup in the morning hall and did not abide by the rules of a woman. Madam of the Prime Minister actually listened to such words. It could be seen that Madam of the Prime Minister was so obedient to Gu Shishu. What happened in the last life seemed to be getting farther and farther away from her. Since she married Chu Luqian, she felt that everything in the past was a dream and not so real. Madam of the Prime Minister will eventually suffer losses because of this niece, Xiao Wanru said lightly. Since she trusts this niece so much, help her. Chu Luqian raised his eyebrows and said. He had always been ruthless to irrelevant people, but since Madam of the Prime Minister was so brainless that she fell in love with a daughter who dealt with zhuozhua, there was no need to sympathize with her. Huaguang Temple is a royal temple, so many noble madams will come here. Madam of the Prime Minister fell in love with zhuozhua because of her injury, so she should live here for a period of time. Xiao Wanru vaguely guessed the plan of her mother and Gu Shishu. With the fact that Yi Nyang had saved Madam of Prime Minister and Gu Shishu's flattering words, Yi Nyang could easily get Madam of Prime Minister's approval. Every time she met a guest, it was also a very simple thing to bring Yi Nyang out. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice. She deliberately slowed down just to let Gu Shishu stop her. At this time, her mother would definitely not want to see her, for fear that she would find out something. Coincidentally, he was just trying his best and had no intention of interfering with the left Prime Minister's wife's matter. Madam of the left Prime Minister was not a good judge of character. In her previous life, she knew that she had nowhere to go, but she still drove her out. If Chu Luqian had not helped her, she would have died. Without the protection of Prime Minister Wen's residence, it would be extremely easy for Jiang Shi and Xiao Seru to take his life. Now she could stand by and watch without directly intervening, which could be considered as repaying Wen Shiqi's warm protection for her. Prince Chen, Princess Chen. Wen Shiqi, who suddenly appeared on the side of the road, was stunned when he saw the two of them. He was also very surprised to meet them here, but he immediately stepped forward and saluted them. At ease, Your Excellency. Chu Luqian waved his hand and said with a faint smile, "How is your mother's injury?" "Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. My mother's injury is not bad, and she should be fine." Wen Shiqi said, glancing at Xiao Wanru beside him, "Princess Chen, can I have a word with you?" "Wen. Please go ahead." Although Xiao Wanru was surprised that Wen Shiqi wanted to talk to Chu Luqian, she still nodded with a smile and took Yujie to the side path. "What's the matter, Your Excellency?" Chu Luqian raised his eyebrows and looked at Wen Shiqi with interest. "I want to talk to you about something, Your Highness," Wen Shiqi said. "Please go ahead." Chu Luqian nodded indifferently and continued to walk forward, followed by Wen Shiqi. "Your Highness, do you know about Marquis Xing's mistress?" Wen Shiqi didn't hide it and said bluntly, "I heard that the mistress is the daughter of a former imperial censor who was lost in the capital city." She is now in my mother's place. Chu Luchen squinted at him and said, I heard from Zhuozhuo that your mother was saved by someone. It turns out that the mistress is Marquis Xing's mistress. It's not a big deal that I happened to meet her. Your Highness, this woman is not simple, and Marquis Xing's behavior is not simple either. Wen Shiqi said slowly. He spoke at a moderate speed, showing that he was in a calm mood. Is there anything unusual about what he said in the Ministry of Justice? Chu Luchen smiled slightly and said lazily. Marquis Xing made a statement in the Ministry of Justice, and it was normal without any mistake. When the former Duke Xing was killed, several people saw him in the capital city, so it was impossible for him to have anything to do with the death of the heir of Duke Xing. As for the death of Infanta Qinghua, it was because she was in poor spirits. She had just given birth to the heir of Duke Xing and died because she was too worried. It was said that Rui and great elder princess went to see her in person, so he couldn't be blamed. Wen Shiqi said. Everything has nothing to do with him, so he is innocent. Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows. That's right, so I let him go back to Marquis Xing's mansion first, Wen Shiqi said. The higher-ups couldn't find anything unusual about this matter because it happened too long ago. Xiao Jing said that he didn't leave the capital city, and when he asked others, they also said that he should be in the capital city. Your Excellency, do you think he is innocent? Chu Luchen suddenly smiled and turned his eyes. There was an inexplicable emotion in his deep eyes, which made people unable to tell whether he was happy or angry at this time. Wen Shiqi didn't answer immediately this time. After a long while, he stepped on a fallen leaf and said, I think he lied. Why? Chu Luchen stopped and looked at Wen Shiqi in surprise. His words were too perfect, as if he had prepared it for a long time. As for the matter about the Jiang family, he was actually the one who benefited from it. There is another flaw, which is the Anyang. This woman is not simple, and she also knows martial arts. Martial arts? Chu Luchen didn't know about this, so he raised his eyebrows. Yes, martial arts. My mother had an accident today, and it was said that she was a little far away from her. Even if my mother's servant girls and old maids reacted slowly, she couldn't have been so fast. She has been Xiao Jing's mistress for so many years and rarely appeared in front of others. How could she be so sensitive? Also, my mother said that no one was very close to her at that time. My mother suddenly tripped and fell. If someone didn't deliberately trip her, someone who knows martial arts threw something over and tripped her. Wen Shiqi made a detailed analysis. This matter was really strange. He specially asked his mother and always felt that Gu Shishu did it to his mother. However, Gu Shishu was innocent and was far away from his mother at that time. Gu Shishu was just a weak girl in the boudoir, so it was impossible for her to do it and hurt his mother from so far away. But if it wasn't her, who was it? The Anyang was the most suspicious person. Wen Shiqi was not the Prime Minister's wife. He was smart, decisive, and sensitive, so it was easy for him to see the changes in the matter. In order to confirm it, he later asked Gu Shishu. Gu Shishu was very flustered. The more he asked, the more flustered she became. In the end, she simply cried. She only said that she was also frightened at that time and couldn't distinguish anything. The more he asked, the more she cried. She was even more unwilling to talk about this matter and obviously had a guilty conscience. After listening to Wen Shiqi's detailed analysis, Chu Luchen glanced at him with a faint smile and said, You just watched your mother be cheated? She didn't know the right person. She had to be taught a lesson. Wen Shiqi's face turned cold and he slightly lowered his head, as if she was not his biological mother. Chu Luchen was very surprised by his expression. He thought that Wen Shiqi would definitely tell his mother immediately and expose Gu Shishu's disguise. I heard that the Prime Minister's wife likes you, her youngest son. Chu Luchen asked curiously. She loved her youngest son the most, but it seemed that he didn't care much about his biological mother being cheated. It was really surprising. Mother spoils Gu Shishu too much. Wen Shiqi was silent for a moment. Somewhere in his heart was fiercely pulled, which made him feel very upset. In the dream, she was chased out with a pale face. She was spurned by so many people. Weak, pathetic, and pitiful, she was right in front of his mourning hall. He seemed to have seen it, but he could only watch helplessly as she was humiliated and chased away. He was powerless. That feeling of deep hatred was a heart-wrenching pain. He could forgive his mother's preference for his second brother and Gu Shishu, but he couldn't allow the woman he cared about to suffer so much grievance and hurt after his death. A trace of deepness flashed across Wen Ye's eyes. Some things were done, no matter what happened in the previous life or in this life. The Ministry of Justice will pay attention to the matter of Marquis Xing. If there is any progress, I will send it to Prince Chen's mansion. Wen Shiqi said, looking at Chu Luchen without avoiding his eyes. This was no longer a simple message, but more like he was taking a side. Yes, he was taking a side. He did not hesitate to take Chu Liuchen's side, unlike his previous insignificant performance on Chu Liuyue's side. Chu Luchen suddenly smiled. His handsome lips curved up, which made people feel that he was as handsome as jade and unparalleled in the world. After smiling for a while, he raised his handsome eyes and then put down his smiling face. A cold murderous look immediately appeared on his face. Third young Master Wen, do you know what you are doing? I know. Sensing Chu Liuchen's sharp gaze, Wen Shiqi nodded and said solemnly. Of course he knew what he was doing. He had to take Prince Chen's side. Only in this way could he protect her and prevent her from being as miserable and sad as in the previous life. Indeed, compared with her, Chu Luchen was more suitable and more suitable. Don't worry, Your Highness. Since I have expressed my feelings here, I will follow Your Highness's lead. Wen Shiqi said without hesitation. In fact, he had been looking for an opportunity to tell Prince Chen about this. During this period of observation, he could sense some of Prince Chen's small movements. He could see clearly what kind of person Prince Chen in front of him was. Only he could protect her, and he was sincerely protecting her. In this case, what else did he want? In the previous life, he owed her. In this life, he only hoped that she would be safe and happy. Chapter 12:25. Yin Yang didn't expect that it would be so smooth that she couldn't believe it. The news that Madam of the Prime Minister fell down somehow spread out. After hearing the news, the madams from aristocratic families who happened to go up the mountain to offer incense came to visit Madam of the Prime Minister one by one. The two Prime Ministers in the court, whether they were Prime Minister Wen or Prime Minister Zhang, were the people they wanted to curry favor with. In the past, when they were in the Prime Minister's mansion, they might not have the chance to visit them. At this time, it was a coincidence. Everyone wanted to take the opportunity of visiting Madam of the Prime Minister to show their faces in front of Madam of the Prime Minister. It might be a great fortune for their husbands or sons. The incense room where Madam of the Prime Minister stayed was crowded and very lively. Many madams who had only met Madam of the Prime Minister once also came. Originally, they thought that Madam of the Prime Minister would definitely not meet them. Unexpectedly, Madam of the Prime Minister was very easy to talk to this time and would meet anyone who came. Because of this, they saw Gu Shishu, the cousin of the Prime Minister's mansion, and Lu Yinyang, the daughter of the former censor who was left in the capital city. In fact, the matter of Yinyang had already been spread in private. Some said that she was the mistress of Marquis Xing and the daughter of the former censor. Everyone was in the mood of watching a show and did not take it seriously. The daughter of the former censor? If there was really such a daughter who was the mistress of Marquis Xing, even if Censor Lu died, he would also be ashamed, not to mention that Censor Lu was still alive. He had been demoted before, and he might have a chance to come back. If he came back and knew about this, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. Unexpectedly, this woman really dared to come to the front of the stage. Seeing that she was very proud in front of Madam of the Prime Minister, Madam of the Prime Minister introduced her to visit the sick one by one. The madams were very sensible and greeted her with smiles and were very kind. Almost without Madam of the Prime Minister saying anything, they accepted Lu Yinyang. Almost overnight, the madams who offered incense and stayed overnight in Huaguang Temple all knew about her. And they all thought highly of her. With the support of Madam of the Prime Minister, Marquise Xing had no legal wife now. In addition, she had an extraordinary background. With these points, she would be the future Madam of Marquise Xing. Thinking of this, everyone pretended not to know that being a mistress was a stain on one's reputation. They smiled and talked. Many people gave her a greeting gift. Each of them pulled Yi and Yang and were extremely intimate. Every time this happened, the Prime Minister's wife would smile and express her satisfaction with Yi and Yang. She would also say that it was all thanks to Yi and Yang's help. Otherwise, she would really be in trouble this time. Gu Shishu said, "Aunt Lu," again, and her behavior was very intimate. People who didn't know would think that they were mother and daughter. Yi and Yang was very satisfied to be able to enter the circle of the madams of the aristocratic families so quickly. After staying on the mountain for 2 days, she accompanied the left Prime Minister's wife down the mountain. They were so close that they looked like a family. When the carriage of Prime Minister Wen's mansion left Huaguang Temple, Xiao Wanru was standing on a hill. Seeing that Anyang got on Madame Wen's carriage, she raised the corners of her mouth silently. She was not surprised by what she saw now. Anyang had been looking for an opportunity to enter Marquise Xing's mansion. The favor of Madam of the Prime Minister allowed her to appear in front of the world justifiably, and also allowed her identity as the daughter of the imperial censor to be recognized, which was no longer just a rumor. Since it wasn't a rumor, it must be true. Have they arrived in the capital city? Xiao Wanru slightly parted her cherry lips and asked very calmly. The wind blew up the hem of her skirt, and the wide hem of her skirt reflected her waist. Her waist became more and more slender, and it was easy to hold it in one hand. She was standing in a pavilion on the top of a small hill. This pavilion was directly facing the mountain gate, so she could see it quite clearly. They will arrive in the capital city soon. Qing stood beside her and reported. She knew who her master was asking about. After arriving in the capital city, arrange for them to stay in the yard outside. Don't go out unless necessary, Xiao Wanru ordered. I understand. Qing knew Xiao Wanru's plan, so she simply answered. Then she followed Xiao Wanru to look down the mountain. The carriages of Madam of the Prime Minister had begun to go down the mountain one by one. The carriage in front belonged to Madam of the Prime Minister, as well as Gu Shishu and Yi Yang. The two of them had just entered Madam of the Prime Minister's carriage together. It seemed that they were accompanying Madam of the Prime Minister to relieve her boredom. Your Highness, Madam of the Prime Minister doesn't look stupid. Qing said in confusion. Madam of the Prime Minister seemed to be very good at talking, and she was also the Prime Minister's wife. How could she be so easily tricked? She trusts Gu Shishu very much. She believes in everything Gu Shishu does and says. She thinks that she raised Gu Shishu, so she knows her best. She is much better than other women outside. Xiao Wanru raised the corner of her mouth sarcastically. In fact, it was not difficult to guess Madam of the Prime Minister's mind. She loved Gu Shishu very much. If she just loved Gu Shishu excessively, it would be fine. However, because of a few words from Xiao Wanru, Madam of the Prime Minister could even neglect other people's lives. Madam of the Prime Minister was just like that. However, it had nothing to do with her. She withdrew her eyes coldly, sat down in the pavilion again, picked up the tea that Qing had just made, and took a sip. The faint fragrance of the tea wafted. Help her spread the word. It's good for the whole capital city to know the current identity of Xiao Jing's mistress. Xiao Wanru said lightly. Yi and Yang had an identity and got acquainted with Madam of the Prime Minister. Madam of the Prime Minister seemed to like Yi and Yang very much. Naturally, someone would go up to flatter her and talk about the relationship between Yi and Yang and Xiao Jing. Madam of the Jiang was gone. Even if it had only been a few days, it didn't matter. How could there be a lack of flatterers in the world? I'll ask someone to spread the news about Yi and Yang later. I'll especially spread the news that she saved Madam of the Prime Minister and won her favor. Qing, understood. In this respect, she was much smarter than other servant girls. However, there was still one thing that she didn't understand very well. Your Highness, do you really plan to let her marry into Marquis Xing's mansion? Why not? Xiao Wanru said with a smile, and her eyes became distant in the fragrance of the tea. Why not? Of course. Especially at this time, Madame of the Jiang's funeral would be held tomorrow. When Madame of the Jiang died, she was dirty and unclear. She had been grounded and lost her reputation. Later, she made such a big joke in front of Marquis Xing's mansion and almost became the joke of the whole capital city. Xiao Jing was very angry. He buried her hastily. The funeral would be held tomorrow and he planned to bury her the day after tomorrow. Even an ordinary family would put her in place for 3 days. Only Madame of the Marquis Xing, who used to be arrogant, ended up in such a miserable state. However, she had brought this upon herself. Xiao Jing planned her death, and her son also participated in it. Although her son didn't do it himself, he was helping Marquis Xing's mansion to clean up the consequences of this matter. When he visited Madame of the Jiang, he made Madame of the Jiang say that her angry words were nonsense. He also asked Madame of the Jiang's mansion to comfort her and take good care of her. In fact, it was all an illusion. Xiao Hua and didn't know what kind of place the Ministry of Justice was. How could Xiao Jing not know? It was very common for a guest to be eavesdropped by the personnel of the Ministry of Justice in the room next door. Madame of the Jiang's mansion was killed by Xiao Jing and Xiao Hua then. One made a move, while the other did nothing to save her and even pushed her. When Xiao Hua went to see Madame of the Jiang's mansion, he had already known that Madame of the Jiang's mansion would definitely die. For the sake of an unwarranted power, Xiao Hua didn't save her biological mother and even pushed her. Xiao Hua's cruelty could be seen clearly. In the last life, Xiao Hua was the one who stayed out of it. Let her talk to Nanny Yu. There is no female master in the Marquis's mansion, so we can't let Xiao Jing stay there for 3 years. Third aunt will make trouble tomorrow. Zhao Shiran's status is not high enough. The Marquis's mansion is in a mess. Xiao Wanru said with an increasingly cold and indifferent smile. Chaos. She wanted to make Marquis Xing's mansion in chaos from top to bottom. Those people thought that she didn't want to leave Marquis Xing's mansion. The current heir was Hao, so she would definitely not be ruthless. Then she would let those people know that there could be no construction without destruction. She didn't care whether Marquis Xing's mansion was destroyed or not. It was enough as long as Hao, and her grandmother were safe in this life. As for Yi Yang, they thought that Madame of the Prime Minister supported her outside and old Madame supported her. In addition, Marquis Xing's mansion was suffering from internal and external troubles. At this time, even if Xiao Jing went out of line, it was okay to let Yi Yang marry into the mansion early, as long as no one objected. Xiao Yanru wanted to go back to Marquis Xing's mansion, while Xiao Hua and Xiao Jing wanted Xiao Yanru to change her appearance and gain glory again. Everyone was greedy, including Yi Yang. The decline of Marquis Xing's mansion was right in front of them. Let's go back. It's time to go down the mountain after packing up. Xiao Wanru stood up and walked out slowly. She had said goodbye to the Empress Dowager before. Tomorrow was the funeral of Marquis Xing's mansion and the day when Third Madam would make a scene in the morning hall. No matter from which aspect, she had to be present. Qing nodded, and they went down the hill one after another. When they returned to the courtyard, Yu Jie and a group of servants had already packed up. They surrounded Xiao Wanru and walked to the gate of Huaguang Temple. The carriage of Prince Chen's mansion had been waiting there for a long time. Seeing them coming out, it hurriedly pulled the carriage over. After getting in the carriage, several carriages went down the mountain. When they arrived at Prince Chen's mansion, the chief butler had been waiting there with a smile. Seeing Xiao Wanru get out of the carriage, he hurriedly stepped forward with a smile and saluted, "Greetings, Your Highness." "Where is His Highness?" Xiao Wanru asked casually. "His Highness is in the study. He asked you to go to the study first." But what's the matter? Xiao Wanru was stunned for a moment and asked. In the past, when she came back from outside, Chu Luchen would come back to the courtyard to see her if he missed her. Nothing. It's just that concubine Lan sent someone over. The chief butler said with a smile. He seemed to be in a good mood, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Xiao Wanru nodded and went to Chu Liuchen's outer study with Yujie, but she was a little confused. In the past, concubine Lan sent someone over, but she couldn't reach Chu Luchen. Why did Chu Luchen receive her now? At the door of the outer study, the chief butler left after seeing Xiao Wanru being taken in by Xiao Xuanzi. Looking at the half-open partition window of the study, his smile slowly faded and he sighed helplessly. In fact, concubine Lan also had a hard life. He didn't dare to say this in front of his master, so he could only keep it in his heart. He only hoped that with the princess, his master would not be so extreme. Chapter 12:26. What's this? Xiao Wanru looked at the thing in front of her in astonishment and didn't recognize it for a moment. It was a small box, and the thing in the box was even smaller. It occupied half of the box. If it weren't for the clear dent on the bottom of the box, she really couldn't tell that half of the thing was missing. What's this? Xiao Wanru looked sideways but still didn't recognize it. She turned to Chu Luchen, who was standing by the window. Chu Luchen stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. Xiao Wanru couldn't see his face clearly, but she inexplicably felt that his emotions were very restrained. After thinking for a while, she took 2 steps forward, put her arms around his waist from behind, and put her little face on his back. If you don't want it, give it back. He probably didn't want concubine Lan's things. She knew that I would want it. Chu Liuchen's voice was a little gloomy. Even if he didn't turn around, she could imagine the coldness on his face. Do you have to? Xiao Wanru asked softly. This is the tiger token. The former emperor's tiger token. Chu Luchen raised the corners of his thin lips and sneered. But only half of it. Half of the tiger token. Xiao Wanru didn't understand, but it didn't prevent her from knowing the meaning of the tiger token. Why only half of it? She only has half of it in her hand. Chu Luchen said. He reached out one hand and gently held Xiao Wanru's little hand in front of him. His hand was very cold, but hers was very warm. Xiao Wanru also held his hand with one hand and gently stroked his hand with her fingers, as if to warm him up, but she didn't ask any more questions. That was the unbearable thing he was most unwilling to talk about in his heart. Since he didn't say it, she didn't ask. Chu Luchen slowly calmed down. Although his eyes were still cold, his face was no longer cold. He turned around, held Xiao Wanru in his arms, looked down at Xiao Wanru's black hair, and said slowly, the former emperor's tiger token can mobilize part of the military power. It was left by the former emperor when he killed people. But later, there was no war, so he put it away and never used it again. Does it mean that the tiger talisman is useless? Xiao Wanru didn't understand this kind of thing and asked subconsciously. Chu Luchen touched her hair from time to time and said, it's useful, but I haven't used it for many years. But if I take it out, it's still useful, but it's not as good as it used to be. If I add an imperial edict now, it'll be more powerful. A tiger talisman and an imperial edict. The meaning of this was enough to make one shiver. Xiao Wanru couldn't help shivering and subconsciously hugged Chu Luchen tightly. Where's the other half? The other half was hidden by the late emperor. I don't know where it is. I haven't seen it for so many years. Chu Luchen said calmly. What does concubine Lan mean now? Xiao Wanru blinked her long eyelashes a few times and didn't quite understand what it meant. Half a piece meant that it was useless. What did concubine Lan mean by sending it here? When concubine Lan sent it here, she said it was for you. Chu Luchen lowered his head and said ambiguously. What? Give it to me? Why are you giving it to me? Xiao Wanru was shocked. She pushed Chu Luchen away and asked anxiously, but then she suddenly understood and said, it should be for you. Maybe she was afraid that you wouldn't want it, so she gave it to you in my name. No, it's for you. Chu Luchen shook his head and said with certainty. Why is it for me? Xiao Wanru really didn't understand this time. In her opinion, concubine Lan was just afraid that Chu Luchen wouldn't accept it. Chu Luchen refused to accept it, so he took the opportunity to give her a gift and gave it to her. It's a pair of tiger talismans. This one was originally in the hands of a woman, Chu Luchen said. A pair of tiger talismans. This one was originally in the hands of the woman. Chu Luchen said. Xiao Wanru pursed her lips and understood. Do you want to give it back now? Whatever you say. Chu Liuchen's eyes were a little gentle, no longer as gloomy as before. His handsome eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face and looked at her quietly with an unclear look. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and looked up at Chu Liuchen's face. Suddenly, she smiled, walked to the table, put the box in her hand, and said, since it's a gift from concubine Lan, I'll accept it. I can't go against concubine Lan's will. Chu Luchen was not surprised by what she did. He said with a smile on his face, since it's yours, just accept it. Just come back and have a good rest. You have to go to Marquis Xing's mansion tomorrow. It's almost time for lunch. I'll have lunch here before I leave. Xiao Wanru took Chu Liuchen's hand and said softly. There was a trace of softness and even a trace of embarrassment in her light smile. Don't you have anything for me to eat here? Of course not. I've prepared what you want to eat. Chu Luchen smiled. This time, it was not just a gentle and calm smile. The smile went straight to the bottom of his eyes and the corners of his mouth were raised high. Xiao Xuanzi, who was at the door, breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly ordered the table to be served. The lunch had been delivered, but Xiao Xuanzi really did not dare to send it in when he saw the prince's expression. Fortunately, the princess came back and the prince calmed down again. Everything was fine. That was great. The lunch was very light but very sumptuous. There were some dishes that Xiao Wanru liked, so there was no need to order dishes at all. Xiao Wanru had no oil in the mountains these days. Although the food at home was light, there was a lot of meat, so she felt comfortable. Finally, she drank a small bowl of soup and put down the bowl. Chu Luchen ate one more bowl than her. He looked thin, but after recovering from his illness, he got better and ate much more than before. After Xiao Wanru finished eating, she watched Chu Luchen eat with a smile. When he put down the bowl, she gave him another bowl of soup. Chu Luchen took it and also ate it. Xiao Xuanzi, who was watching from the side, smiled more and more. Sure enough, as long as the princess was here, the worst mood of his master would disappear. How could Xiao Xuanzi not know his master's temper? If the princess was not here, the thing sent by concubine Lan would definitely make his master think of something bad again. At that time, no one knew how angry he would be. Fortunately, he had the princess. After lunch, the two of them held hands and ate separately. After that, Xiao Wanru returned to her courtyard with the brocade box. After returning to the courtyard and taking a nap for a while, Xiao Wanru got up. She was going to Marquis Xing's mansion tomorrow, so there were still some things to prepare. The next day, Xiao Wanru didn't go early, but when she arrived at Marquis Xing's mansion, she found that the whole mansion was deserted. Even at the gate, there was only a small piece of white cloth hanging on the gate, which meant that there was a funeral in the mansion. The gate was half open, and the servants at the gate were all lazy. It was impossible to tell that this was a family that was busy with a funeral. Seeing the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion coming over, the gatekeeper hurriedly stepped forward to salute and led the carriage to the back. When they arrived at the place where the carriage was parked, there were only a few scattered carriages, which didn't seem to belong to a noble family. They should be the relatives of the Xiao family. Worship. The place where the Jiang family's coffin was parked was very remote. Only after going around the corner could they see it. Only Zhao Shiran was in the mourning hall, and even Xiao Hua was not there. There were several other servant girls and old maids in white clothes. Even if the dignified supervisor and old maid in the mansion were gone, they should still be dignified. Xiao Wanru calmly stepped forward to light an incense stick and then left. As for the Jiang family, she could come today for the sake of Marquis Xing's mansion. Fifth sister, go inside and have a seat. Zhao Shiran should have been waiting for her here. After she finished lighting the incense stick, he said slowly. Her face looked very calm, and her eyes were not red. Although she was a little tired, she was basically calm. She was dressed in coarse white clothes, which made her look listless and haggard. Where is my eldest brother? Xiao Wanru looked around and asked. He is inside. My grandmother is with my father, and some elders are also there. Zhao Shiran said with a pale face. Xiao Wanru frowned and asked, First sister-in-law, what happened? Zhao Shiran wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. After a pause, he said, Fifth sister, you'd better go and have a look by yourself. Xiao Wanru nodded, and they went to the backyard together. The main room of old Madam's Chuntang courtyard was very lively. Old Madam, who had suffered a stroke, was also there, half lying on the couch in the middle. Xiao Jinghe and Third Master Xiao were sitting on each side. Third Madam was sitting beside Third Master Xiao, and Xiao Hua and was sitting on Xiao Jing's side. As for Xiao Jia, Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kailing, they didn't see any of them. Next, there were several elders of the Xiao family sitting on both sides. Xiao Wanru was a little familiar with these elders. When she returned to the Xiao family, these elders should have been there. The death of the Jiang family was a big event in the Xiao family, so it was normal for them to appear here. Seeing Xiao Wanru come in, everyone present, including Xiao Jing, bowed to her. At present, Xiao Wanru was the highest. After saying, no need to stand on ceremony, Xiao Wanru sat down in the middle. There had been a vacant seat in the middle. Marquis Xing's mansion also guessed that Prince Chen would not come, so there was a vacant seat. The atmosphere in the room was very dull. After sitting down, Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jing and asked softly, Second uncle, what were you discussing before? There were so many people here, but only Zhao Shiran was waiting in the morning hall of the Jiang family. Moreover, he was waiting for her here, so there must be something important. When she entered the yard just now, she heard the voices in the room from a distance, but now no one said anything. Your grandmother just made a suggestion. Xiao Jing sighed and said helplessly. Tuan Tuan's smiling face was no longer as pleasing as it used to be. Instead, it was a little gloomy. What else can Grandma say now? Xiao Wanru looked at old Madam lying on the bed in surprise and raised her watery eyes slightly. Your Highness, although old Madam can't move, she can still say some simple things. I have heard some simple things from old Madam these days, so I can understand them. Nanny Yu stepped forward and explained with a smile. Then let's talk about what grandmother said that actually alarms so many clan elders. Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows and looked at the several elders sitting aside. When they entered the door just now, they should be the elders who argued vigorously. It seemed that old Madam's proposal was really not so satisfactory. In the past, no one dared to doubt old Madam's words and actions. Chapter 1227. Old Madam means that she wants Madam Lu to marry into the mansion so that she can manage the family affairs. The mansion is in a mess, and it can't be so messy. After all, first grandma is a junior. It's not convenient for her to manage some things, and she can't manage them all. Nanny Yu got Xiao Jing's hint. She was perturbed and said in a low voice. Madam Lu. Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows. She is the daughter of an imperial censor. She has been with the Marquis for so many years. Madam Dowager means that she has worked hard even if she doesn't make any contributions. Moreover, there is a miss in the Marquis's mansion. We can't let the miss of the Marquis's mansion live outside without knowing why. Nanny Yu explained. Madam Lu was Lu Yi's mother. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. As expected, Xiao Jing and Xiao Yanru couldn't keep calm. Madam of Jiang had just stopped the coffin, and now they were going to let Anyang enter the door. Xiao Wanru wondered if Madame of Jiang would climb out of the coffin in anger and settle accounts with her children and Xiao Jing in the middle of the night if she knew it. She's just a concubine's daughter. She can't become the Marquis's second wife. Moreover, Madame Jiang's body hasn't even turned cold yet. How can we let a newcomer marry into the family? One of the clan elders said unhappily. The others nodded repeatedly. It was obvious that they all felt that the situation was not good. At this time, even a concubine was not suitable, let alone a concubine. The so-called madam was naturally not a concubine's concubine. After all, Madame Jiang had just died. Xiao Jing sighed and said, Lu's identity is not ordinary, and she has been with us for so long. Madam of the Prime Minister thinks highly of her. A few days ago, she saved Madam of the Prime Minister's life in Huaguang Temple. It's my fault that Marquis Xing's mansion has become like this. I feel ashamed to face the Xiao family. If it goes on like this, there may be no place for our Xiao family in the capital city in a few years. He meant to talk about the future of the Xiao family, as if the Xiao family would have no hope if Anyang was not allowed to marry into the Xiao family. Xiao Wanru glanced at Xiao Hua then. Since he entered the room, he had been sitting here quietly with his head lowered. She could not see the expression on his face and he did not respond to Xiao Jing's words at all. Saved the Prime Minister's wife's life? The eyes of the elders lit up. They looked at each other and immediately understood the meaning in each other's eyes. Many aristocratic families knew about this. The Xiao clan knew that the two prime ministers, Prime Minister Wen and Prime Minister Zhang, were important ministers in the imperial court. It was a great thing to have connections with these two prime ministers. The decline of Marquis Xing's mansion had become a foregone conclusion. The most important thing for the Xiao clan was Marquis Xing's mansion, which was related to the survival of the Xiao clan. Even if the elders were unwilling, they could not say anything. One by one, they nodded their heads and reluctantly expressed their agreement. However, they also repeatedly suggested that even if Lady Zhao entered the Fu as a secondary wife, they could not do anything about etiquette at this time. At most, they could only invite a few family members to a meal and not a single outsider could be invited. If these words were to spread out, it would not be good to say but not good to hear. It was better to let others think that it was better to marry a concubine, but to openly marry a co-wife would make people sick. At that time, they would quietly open the genealogy book and record Lady Lu and her daughter into the genealogy book. As for what would happen in the future, Xiao Jing did not say it, nor did the elders. Since the matter had been settled, the elders decided to leave when they saw that it was almost time. Originally, these elders did not intend to come. The Jiang clan's reputation was not good, and they had brought this upon themselves. No one was willing to come at this time. If Xiao Jing had not specifically ordered them to leave, they would not have. If Xiao Jing had not specially ordered them to come over, they would not be willing to worship the Jiang family. There was a slight smile on old Madame's crooked face. It seemed that she was in a good mood. The third madam suddenly stood up with the help of a servant girl, staggered a few steps, and knelt in front of the good old madam. Old madam, the second sister-in-law's body is not cold yet, but the mansion actually wants to marry a new wife. I can't accept it. How can a daughter from another family marry into our Marquis Xing's mansion? She said that she is the daughter of the former censor, but who knows whether she is a fake. The third madam was furious. What nonsense are you talking about? Third Master Xiao did not expect this. After being stunned for a moment, he became furious and stood up to pull the third madam. This matter was second brother's business, and it had little to do with the third branch. Old madam, if you are biased towards this cheap woman from nowhere and want her to marry into the mansion, then we, the third branch, are willing to separate from the mansion and live alone, the third madam said with difficulty. At a glance, it was obvious that she was sick and weak. She was panting, not knowing whether she was angry or tired. Third Master Xiao did not dare to touch her. How could he touch her in such a state? He just rubbed his hands anxiously and said in a low voice, "What nonsense are you talking about? This is second brother's business, and it has nothing to do with us. You are not in good health, so you'd better go to rest early. The third madam turned to third Master Xiao and smiled sadly. It has nothing to do with us. If such a woman marries into the mansion, what about our daughters in the future? They are not married yet, right? How can they get married? Second sister-in-law's body is not cold yet, and second uncle wants to bring this woman into the mansion. I heard that it was because of this woman that second aunt begged for death. At this time, aren't you afraid that second sister-in-law will jump out of the coffin? Xiao Jing's two daughters, whether Xiao Yanru or Xiao Jia, were at least married now. Next were Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kailing. Thinking that his two daughters did not have a suitable marriage recently, third Master Xiao was also very annoyed. Second uncle, can't you marry a decent woman into the mansion? Third Master Xiao, who had been indifferent to the marriage of his two daughters, couldn't help but say angrily at this time when he saw the third madam's angry look. Old madam, who was lying on the couch, patted the edge of the bed hard. At this time, if she could move, she would have slapped the third madam twice and asked her to kneel outside. Since when could a small third madam like her make decisions in the mansion? Third brother, what nonsense are you talking about? Xiao Jing said sternly with a straight face. No, second brother, I didn't mean. Third Master Xiao, who had always been afraid of his brother, immediately lowered his voice after being reprimanded by Xiao Jing. Marquis, our third branch wants to separate. The third madam gritted her teeth and insisted. Unlike third Master Xiao, she was no longer afraid of Xiao Jing at this time even though she used to be afraid of him. Hey, don't talk nonsense. Third Master Xiao looked at her and then at Xiao Jing, whose face was as dark as the sea, and stamped his feet anxiously. Third Master, our third branch has always been an extra in the Marquis's mansion. If there is anything, they will not discuss it with us. Most of the time, they will inform us. If it weren't for the elders here today, I'm afraid that the two of us wouldn't even know that the woman had entered the mansion. Haven't our two daughters suffered enough in the past? Now they still have to bow to such a woman. If this is really the case, even if I die, I will take my daughters away. If I die, you can also bring other women into the mansion before my bones turn cold. The third madam's face was full of tears, but her meaning was very clear. She would separate from the family today no matter what. The elders looked at each other and were speechless for a moment. They did not expect that things would go to such a point. It was the first time that Xiao Jing had been slapped in the face by his useless sister-in-law. She kept mentioning other women. He was so angry that his face turned blue. He slammed his hand on the table heavily and looked at third Master Xiao gloomily. Third brother, what do you say? Third Master Xiao was a reckless man. He had never cared about the third madam's words in the past. But now, when he saw the third madam's appearance, saw her bone-thin hand squeezing the handkerchief in her hand hard, saw a faint trace of blood in the handkerchief, and then thought of the matter of an outsider marrying into the mansion, he did not know where he got the courage for a moment. Second brother, let's separate from the family. He really could not live on like this. His wife was about to die of illness, and his daughters did not even have a marriage. The worse the reputation of the mansion was, the worse it would be for their marriage. For so many years, the third branch of the family was just a decoration in Marquis Xing's mansion. Third Master Xiao did not care about it before, but now he felt a little wronged. Second brother brought all kinds of women into the fu, no matter if they smelled good or smelled bad. He did this for his daughter who was raised outside, but he also had daughters, and two daughters at that. Third brother, do you know what you are talking about? Xiao Jing flew into a rage, and the blue veins on his forehead stood out. His younger brother, who had always been obedient to him, actually stabbed him at this time. He really could not bear it. Without the protection of the Marquis's mansion in the future, how can the marriage of my two nieces be good? Well. Third Master Xiao hesitated again. He did take a big part in the marriage of his two daughters, and seeing his second brother being so angry, he felt guilty and could not help turning his head to look at the third madam. Thank you, second uncle. If it's possible, I hope second uncle can separate us. Our daughters don't want to marry rich and powerful people. We can only marry clean and innocent people. We can't let them be scolded by others before they even get married. How will they face others in the future? Even if they get married, how will they be able to raise their heads in the future? The third madam said with difficulty. Although her voice was low, her words were very powerful. After saying that, she kowtowed to old madam again and said, "Old madam, please grant my wish." It seemed that she was determined to separate from the family. Although old madam could not move her mouth or her hands, she knew in her heart. She was angry and hateful, but she could only make strange sounds and slap her hands and feet. She glared at the third madam angrily and salivated. Nanny Yu took 2 steps forward, wiped old madam's saliva with a handkerchief, and then carefully stepped aside. "I don't agree." Xiao Jing said angrily and glared at the third madam. "I agree." A cold voice sounded almost at the same time. It penetrated Xiao Jing's voice and appeared in everyone's ears. It was Xiao Wanru's voice. Her words attracted everyone's attention. Even Xiao Hua then, who had been silent, raised his head and looked at Xiao Wanru's tense little face with an unknown look in his eyes. "What do you mean, Princess Chen?" Xiao Jing's face became increasingly ugly. Chapter 12:28. The clan elders looked at each other, not saying a word. If she were an ordinary junior, they would definitely reprimand her without Xiao Jing saying anything. However, the one in front of them was Princess Chen now, and no one dared to offend her. "Second uncle, third aunt is in poor health, so we can't go against her wishes. It's really inappropriate for Zhao to marry into our family at this time. If it weren't for, actually, I also want Marquis Xing's mansion to have a better reputation." Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jing's gloomy face, smiled slightly, and said lightly. The third branch could separate, but the first branch and the second branch couldn't. The title of Marquis Xing's mansion was still in Xiao Jing's hands, but the position of heir of duke was in the hands of the first branch, which meant that the first branch and the second branch couldn't be separated. "Princess Chen, do you mean that the first branch also wants to separate?" Xiao Jing said in a sharp voice. Qing's face darkened. She knew that Marquis Xing was reprimanding her master. Xiao Wanru waved her hand gently, motioning for her not to act rashly. She raised her watery eyes slightly and said quietly, "Second uncle, I just said that I agree with third aunt's proposal to separate, but you asked me why the first branch wants to separate? Could it be that second uncle thinks that us siblings are an eyesore?" Her words were extremely sharp. Xiao Wanru's eyes were like pools of water, and her face turned cold. There were only her and her brother in the first branch, so she could indeed speak on behalf of Xiao Yuanhao. Xiao Jing calmed down and suppressed the anger in his heart. He had thought that it was just a formality, but now he couldn't control his anger for a while. "Princess Chen, I was wrong," Xiao Jing said. Xiao Wanru's face softened. "What do you mean, second uncle? Are you going to force third aunt to die if you don't separate?" "Second uncle, we, the third branch, must separate. We can't afford to lose our reputation. Your second branch has already gotten married, so there are only a few people in the third branch left. However, our third branch hasn't got engaged. If I die like this, what will happen to their marriage, Third madam cried and coughed while crying. She covered her chest with force and coughed so hard that she could hardly breathe. The maids on both sides hurriedly helped her to pat her chest. It took a long time for her to recover. "Second uncle, thank you, second uncle." When third master Xiao saw that the third madam was in such a state, but she was still thinking about her children, he felt sad for a moment. The children of the third branch were indeed not engaged. If something happened to the third madam, she would be delayed for another 3 years. The 2 daughters would not be able to bear the responsibility first. If they continued to be delayed, would the 2 daughters still marry? With that in mind, he also knelt down with a thud. "Mother, second brother, please let our third branch separate. If second brother can do this for one daughter, I can do it too. I have 2 daughters." He was talking about Xiao Jing's concubine. The Madam of Jiang had just died, but his second brother insisted on bringing a concubine into the family. Third Master Xiao thought that the most important reason was the concubine. It was said that the concubine was not young and it was a good time for her to get married. It would be bad if they continued to delay it. The reason why his second brother insisted on bringing the concubine into the mansion despite the fact that the Madam of Jiang's coffin was still outside must be this reason. His second brother was not a man who would faint at the sight of a woman. It was impossible for him to be so ruthless this time for the concubine. Third Master Xiao invisibly knew the truth. Xiao Yanru faked her death and left the imperial palace. This was her only chance to return to Marquis Xing's mansion. How could she let go of this opportunity? Even if the lineal daughter of Marquis Xing's mansion had fallen, at least it sounded better than a concubine and had infinite possibilities in the future. Mother, second uncle, please help us. The third madam held the maid's hand and said with difficulty, her voice getting lower and lower. Old madam, who was lying on the bed, moved her hands and feet desperately with hatred in her eyes. She wished she could kill the third madam right now, but she could do nothing but struggle to make a sound to remind others of their anger. However, her resentment in vain did not attract the attention of the people present. Everyone's eyes fell on Third Master Xiao and the third madam. What do you think, elders? Xiao Wanru looked up at the stunned elders and asked softly. This. The elders were also very helpless. Things changed so fast that they did not expect the third madam to be so resolute. It's better to think about it in the long run. An elder stroked his long beard and said delaying. When can we think about it in the long run? Even if we can afford to wait, third aunt's current situation. Second uncle can't wait, let alone third aunt's current situation. Xiao Wanru stared at the elder who spoke with her watery eyes as cold as ice. The elder's hands trembled and he lowered his head. He couldn't answer her. The third madam was in a very bad situation. If she was not careful, she might really die of anger on the spot. If something happened, who could bear the responsibility? A concubine of the second branch was fine, but she couldn't wait any longer. Since the third madam was in such a state, how could they let her wait any longer? It was not up to them to decide whether to die of anger or not. Second brother, I beg you, please separate from the family. If you don't, she. Third Master Xiao was so anxious that sweat broke out on his forehead. He knew that the third madam was in a bad situation at first glance, and her whole body softened. Third Master Xiao took the third madam from the maid and said in a loud voice, second brother's daughter is a daughter, and my daughter is also a daughter. She is just a concubine. Do you really want to force your sister-in-law to death for a concubine? If so, all of us in the third branch might as well die here, lest your two nieces can't get married in the past. Third Master Xiao was usually a hooligan, so he didn't pay much attention to the third madam. But now he was furious, and it seemed that the third madam couldn't hold on any longer. Xiao Jing was so angry that he gritted his teeth. In the past, his useless brother didn't dare to speak to him like this, but now he dared to provoke him and say such words. Second uncle, let go of third uncle and third aunt. Xiao Wanru said coldly. Others were juniors and didn't dare to speak, but she was different. With her identity, even if she said something, no one could do anything to her. Okay, split from the family and separate the third branch. Xiao Jing's words were almost forced out of his teeth. He couldn't let others say that he had forced his sister-in-law to death because of the concubine. The third madam was not the madam of the Jiang family, and she had a good reputation. Although she was not a powerful figure in Marquis Xing's mansion for so many years, old madam didn't take her seriously. But she had always been good outside the mansion. If something really happened, Xiao Wanru sitting here would not let him get away, not to mention that third Master Xiao was a hooligan and might really make a scene. Xiao Jing took a deep breath and suppressed the sweetness in his throat. He had to divide this family no matter what. Split it. Thank you, second uncle. The third madam had come to make a scene. Hearing Xiao Jing's words, she softened and fainted in Third Master Xiao's arms. Third Master Xiao was so anxious that his face changed dramatically. He immediately sent someone to invite a doctor. Fortunately, the third madam also had a doctor, so the doctor came soon. Xiao Jing didn't care about his sister-in-law's situation and just said with a cold face, "Third brother, do you really want to separate from the family? After that, you will just be an ordinary family and no longer be a disciple of Marquis Xing's mansion. Don't worry, second brother. I know. Thank you, second brother." Third Master Xiao just wanted to separate from the family now. He didn't want it to end up like this, so he could only grit his teeth and beg for separation. He had always been very afraid of Xiao Jing. At this time, he was not afraid and refused to give in. At this point, it was useless for Xiao Jing to say anything. The elders and Xiao Wanru of the first branch were here. Xiao Jing calmed down and divided the things of the third branch with Third Master Xiao. Old Madam was also so angry that she fainted. Zhao Shiran accompanied her into the inner room and invited a doctor to see her. Xiao Wanru couldn't leave at this time. She represented the first branch now. This time, the third branch would be divided. If they wanted to divide it, they should divide it together. However, because of the particularity of the first branch and the second branch, and because it was the third branch who proposed the separation, there was no objection. The third branch took the initiative to ask for it because Xiao Jing wanted to marry a daughter from outside the family, and the elders were listening. Xiao Jing couldn't really treat the third branch badly. As for Xiao Wanru, she was very generous and said that she would give more to the third branch. The third madam was in poor health, and Third Master Xiao couldn't marry her. Besides, Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kailing were not married, so they would have a dowry in the future. The third branch was given a lot of benefits. Xiao Jing saw these benefits, but he couldn't say anything. He was angry and annoyed. Xiao Wanru had agreed, and she took the initiative to make it up to the third branch. As the second brother, of course, he couldn't be stingy, which made him increasingly feel the benefits of letting Yi and Yang marry into the family. If Yi and Yang had married into the family now, it would be impossible for her to let him suffer such a big loss. The second branch still lacked an elder in charge of the inner court. As a man, he couldn't argue with his niece here. Xiao Huan was also a man, so it was inconvenient for him to say anything. Although Zhao Shiran was the eldest sister-in-law, his identity as an equal was nothing compared to Princess Chen's identity. Xiao Jing was aggrieved and annoyed, so he separated the third branch. After learning that they were going to separate, Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kailing were very calm and asked people to take care of the things in their courtyards. In the future, the third branch would not live in Marquis Xing's mansion and was given a large house with a good location on the street and a large area. This was proposed by Xiao Wanru to be compensated by Marquis Xing's mansion to the third branch. Originally, this house was not intended to be given to the third branch. Xiao Wanru proposed it, so Xiao Jing had to agree. Marquis Xing's mansion was in a mess. The servants of the third branch were busy moving things out, and some people went there to clean up the house. For a moment, it didn't look like a funeral, but a lively event, which attracted some people outside the mansion to inquire about the news carefully. Basically, the people who went in and out were the servants of the third branch. The servants of the third branch used to be disdainful in the mansion. At this time, when they heard that the third branch had separated and got a lot of benefits, they were in a very good mood. When they heard someone asked, they spread the news in detail. Chapter 1229. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net there was no pop-up window for free reading. What? Was Marquis Xing's mansion going to separate today? Wasn't it the funeral of the former madam of Marquis Xing? Was it not a funeral, but a separation? What? The third madam couldn't stand that Marquis Xing asked a mistress to take charge of the internal affairs of the mansion these days, so she insisted on separating. What was going on? Madam of Jiang had just died, but she asked a mistress to take charge of the internal affairs of the mansion. Marquis Xing's mansion was really improper. No wonder the third branch wanted to separate. If they stayed together, they might do something ridiculous. Hearing the words of the servants of the third branch, many people whispered to each other and pointed at Marquis Xing's mansion. Marquis Xing's way of handling affairs was really improper. No matter how bad Madame of Jiang was, she shouldn't let a mistress take charge of the internal affairs of the mansion at this time. No wonder the third madam wanted to separate. If they didn't separate, they would lose face. Xiao Jing originally wanted to handle the affairs of Yi and Yang quietly. As long as she was listed in the genealogy and entered the gate of Marquis Xing's mansion, with the support of Madam of the Prime Minister, no one could interfere with his affairs. After all, he didn't hold a formal banquet for the sake of Madam of Jiang. He didn't expect that this matter would become like this. Not only many people knew it, but many people also criticized it. He was so angry that he went directly to the study in the front yard, ignoring Madam of Jiang's funeral. Xiao Hua and also went to the study and pushed all the affairs to Zhao Shiran. Seeing old Madam still struggling on the bed and thinking of the mess in the mansion, Zhao Shiran felt that she was really not enough to handle it alone. When she married into Marquis Xing's mansion, she thought that she could control the whole Marquis Xing's mansion in her hands. On the one hand, she helped her father find something, and on the other hand, she could make Duke Xing's mansion prosper with her own ability. Now, at this time, it was a mess. Everyone pushed the blame to her. Looking at old Madam's hateful eyes, she seemed to be the one who broke up the family. Zhao Shiran felt weak all over, but she had to deal with affairs. There were so many things to do inside and outside the mansion, but her father-in-law and Xiao Hua and didn't care about them and left them all to her. How could she, as a new daughter-in-law, deal with them? At this moment, Zhao Shiran worked hard and regretted marrying into Marquis Xing's mansion. At that time, he actually had a lot of choices. With his hand on the pillar, his vision darkened and his ears filled with the voices of the servants. His body softened and he almost fainted. Great-grandmother, great-grandmother, great-grandmother. After a long while, Zhao Shiran slowly opened his eyes and looked around in a daze. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "I'm fine. Go back to your work. Great-grandmother, this servant will help you rest for a while." Qiu Yu and Qiu Yan, her dowry maids, were worried and helped her to sit down. "No need, let's go back first," Zhao Shiran said in a low voice. "First grandma, old madam, what should we do?" Qiu Yu glanced at old madam secretly and asked in a low voice. She could tell that old madam was in a bad condition. She was really afraid that Master Ho and first young master would blame first grandma for everything if something happened to old madam. Zhao Shiran smiled bitterly and lowered her eyes. In order to plot against Duke Xing's mansion, she married into Marquis Xing's mansion, and no one in Duke Xing's mansion treated her sincerely. But now she had to deal with the mess. "Help me to sit on the stool," Zhao Shiran said. She couldn't leave here now. She still had to take charge of the affairs in the mansion. Fortunately, the outside maid was going to marry into the mansion. Zhao Shiran had been very opposed to this outside maid marrying into the mansion before, but now she had no choice. Since they wanted to marry into the mansion, she could just let them in. The reputation of Marquis Xing's mansion was already so bad. Could it be worse? She couldn't clean up the mess in the mansion. Whoever wanted to clean it up could do it. Marquis Xing's mansion couldn't recover. Xiao Wanru left when there was a disturbance in the mansion. The mansion was in such a mess that there was no one who could make decisions. The inner courtyard was in a mess. She didn't intend to help Marquis Xing's mansion. She got in the carriage with her own people and went out of Marquis Xing's mansion to pay respects to Madame Jiang. She also came, and Marquis Xing's mansion couldn't find any fault with her. The storm was blowing. She wanted to see how Marquis Xing's mansion could survive this storm. The carriage was very calm. She took a cup of tea and looked at the tea in the cup with a hint of gloom in her clear eyes. Marquis Xing's mansion killed her parents, so there was no need for them to stay. "Mother, what should we do?" The people of the Ministry of Justice came to ask about it again. In Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, Chu Qing was also very annoyed. The Empress Dowager was still in Huaguang Temple, and not everyone could see her. At present, this matter really couldn't be delayed any longer. An official of the Ministry of Justice, even if he was just a low-ranking official, died in his mother's temple. If no one said anything, the Ministry of Justice would not close the case and send people over from time to time. Push someone out. Old Princess said with a gloomy face. She knocked the wooden fish in her hand so hard that it almost covered her own words. Push who? Chu Qing was not surprised by her words. There must be a reason. If the reason was not well explained, he might be implicated. Chu Qing could not bear this responsibility. In the emperor's heart, he was not a nephew. Both he and Chu Luchen were the sons of the former emperor, but there was a huge gap between them. To be able to hide a lowly official in the temple, it was not something that an ordinary person in the mansion could do. Push a supervisor out. Old Princess gritted her teeth and said, tonight, push a supervisor out and say that he committed suicide. Say that someone secretly brought him in that day, and it was this supervisor who did it. What's the purpose? Chu Qing asked anxiously. Someone wants to frame you, and then wants to assassinate you. The real purpose is not to assassinate you. The main purpose is to have someone search Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, find the low-ranking official of the Ministry of Justice who died, and frame you. Old Princess put down the wooden fish in her hand heavily and said fiercely. Since the Empress Dowager's way could not work, she would not take this way. It was a good idea. Chu Qing nodded repeatedly. Now he had no choice but to be forced by the Ministry of Justice. The minister of the Ministry of Justice said that if Chu Qing could not give a suitable explanation, he would take him directly to the Ministry of Justice. Mother, who do you think should frame me? Chu Qing thought for a while and said. There was a cause and effect in this matter. She had to secretly point the finger, otherwise the Ministry of Justice would not take it seriously. It should not have been so late on the day when the low-ranking official died. Because of the death of the Madam of Jiang, the Ministry of Justice left many people here, including the low-ranking official. What if the death of the Madam of Jiang has something to do with him? Old Princess was indeed a person who had experienced 2 dynasties and hid her son in the Yuhui nunnery. At this time, she had already made a decision. Considering what had happened before, the strange behavior of the Ministry of Justice, and some other clues, Old Princess inferred that the low-ranking official might have something to do with the death of the Madam of Jiang. Marquis Xing will definitely benefit from the death of the Madam of Jiang. I heard that Marquis Xing raised a woman and a daughter outside and wanted to marry into Marquis Xing's mansion. At that time, the Madam of Jiang was about to commit suicide in order to frame Marquis Xing. Now that she died at this time, Marquis Xing will benefit from it. Old Princess continued. Chu Qing nodded repeatedly, but he had to hesitate for a moment and said, Mother, Xiao Jing's status is not high enough. With Xiao Jing's status, he could not afford to assassinate her. If Xiao Jing is not high enough, what about Prince Qing behind him? Old Princess sneered. At this time, she had no time to care about the secret contact between Prince Cheng and them. In order to save herself, she had to push Prince Cheng out. Because she had secret contact with Prince Cheng, she knew that the relationship between Xiao Jing and Prince Cheng was unusual. She also knew that Xiao Jing was actually on Prince Cheng's side. It was inappropriate to push the blame on Xiao Jing, but how about pushing it on Prince Cheng? It was just right. Will Prince Cheng bite back at us? Chu Qing was still a little worried. Prince Cheng was not someone to be trifled with. They knew something about Prince Cheng, and Prince Cheng also knew something about them. So what? At most, he is making groundless accusations. We didn't say anything. Some news was not released by us, so it has nothing to do with us. Chu Luyue, Chu Liuzhou, and Chu Luchen are all not easy to deal with. Old Princess said coldly with a cold face. But, Mother. Chu Qing was still hesitating. We can't let anyone find out. Let Mo Chiui handle it. Isn't Wei Dehai on her side? Even if something happens, it won't be traced back to you. Old princess said disapprovingly. Mother, Chili is going to marry me. It's not good for her to have an accident at this time, isn't it? Chu Qing was still worried. Mo Chili had been with him in the Yuhui nunnery for so many years, and the two of them were childhood sweethearts. Unlike other women, even if Mo Chili was not very beautiful and could not even compare with Xiao Jia, Chu Qing always took her side. If she doesn't do well, there will be someone to replace her. Old princess sneered indifferently. She is the helper I left for you. It's inevitable for her to help you succeed. Mo Chili's bloodline was also the bloodline of the royal princess of the previous dynasty. But so what? Qing, was the most important one, and others didn't matter. Mo Chili was not the only bloodline of the royal princess of the previous dynasty. There were many princesses in the previous dynasty, including Consort Li who fled to the Su kingdom. If Mo Chili couldn't replace her, there would be someone else to replace her. As for Wei Dahai, he was even less important. There were many tricks left by the previous dynasty, and now most of them were in her hands, so old princess was very confident. Only when his son ascends to the throne would he be worthy of the title. No one else could do it, no one else. Qing, don't be too sentimental. Chili is good, and I will definitely win her over. But you have to remember that you are the master, and the others are all your subordinates. If there is no other way, even I can be sacrificed. Old princess said earnestly, Mo Chili did something wrong before, which led to the looting of that treasury. Until now, we still don't know whose hands it has fallen into and whose suspicion it has aroused. At that time, you shouldered the responsibility alone. If you still protect her wholeheartedly, what will others think? Old princess said with a heavy heart. Chu Qing fell silent and couldn't say anything for a while. It was really Mo Chili's mistake, and he lost a lot of people. Chapter 1230. There was a lot of money left in that treasury. It was at least a quarter of Chu Qing's family fortune. Before this, Wei Dahai's wife was in charge of it. Of course, Mo Chili was the main person in charge of it. Who would have thought that this treasury would be robbed? Chu Qing didn't even know who did it. After that, he had sent someone to investigate secretly, but he couldn't find anything, so he could only leave it unsettled. Old princess was furious. She had asked Wei Dahai to prepare some money again to make up for the loss this time. However, Wei Dahai was also a useless man. The shop he liked fell into the hands of Princess Chen in the end, so that he didn't get any benefits. Every time she thought of this matter, old princess couldn't help but vent her anger on Mo Chili. The gold bars, gold bracelets, and other gold bricks in the treasury were all solid. Originally, they were very useful for the grand plan to restore the country. Because of this treasury, their hands and feet were tied down a lot, and they also had a lot less money to move around. Old princess was angry at the thought of it, but when Mo Chili came over, old princess often greeted her with a smile. She still needed Mo Chili, who was the helper she found for her son. Since Mo Chili was a helper, old princess certainly wouldn't want her son to do anything to Mo Chili. She would do as her mother said. Chu Qing thought for a while and listened to old princess. Mother, how is Xiao Jia? Should I go to pick her up? She has been in Marquis Xing's mansion for many days. It's good that she doesn't want to come back, lest she knows what happened in the mansion. Qing, you should know that Xiao Jia, married into the mansion reluctantly. This time, such a thing happened, so she is the most suspicious one. If she comes back, we have to find a chance to get rid of her. Old princess said unhappily. She hated her son's sentimental look the most. How could Xiao Jia, the daughter of a concubine, deserve her son? Mother, should I leave her alone now? Chu Qing subconsciously felt a little reluctant. After all, when Xiao Jia, was gentle, she could still be lovable. She was more beautiful than Mo Chili. Don't worry about her and leave the matter to her. Isn't she back to Marquis Xing's mansion now? Didn't we want to say that Prince Qing set you up? By bringing the matter to Marquis Xing's mansion, we can imply that she also helped you that day. Now she has returned to Marquis Xing's mansion after the accident. Even if you go to pick her up, she doesn't dare to come back. Old princess sneered. She had always been a smart woman. Otherwise, she would not have sneaked into the palace and given birth to Chu Qing in the Yuhui nunnery. How could she have done this without careful planning? If it wasn't for her bad luck, she would have pushed out the former empress at this time and ascended to the position of empress herself. Her son would also be the legitimate son. How could there be anything between Prince Yu and Prince Shou? On the day when the Madam of Jiang was buried, it was still deserted. Only Xiao Hua led a group of people to bury the Madam of Jiang in the ancestral land of the Xiao clan. They didn't worship along the way. Many people didn't even know that this group of people was from Marquis Xing's mansion, let alone that such a small group of people was from Marquis Xing's mansion. They looked more like a funeral team of an ordinary family. Xiao Jing didn't show up. He secretly went to Prince Cheng and came to the Yuyan temple where Prince Cheng lived. He was led to Prince Cheng's room. As soon as he entered the room, he saw Prince Cheng sitting there coldly with a sullen look on his face. Standing beside him was Jian, master of the Yuyan temple. After looking at Xiao Jing, he lowered his head speechlessly. He didn't say anything either. The atmosphere in the room was very cold. Prince, I pay my respects to Prince. Xiao Jing tried to put on a smiling face. He took 2 steps forward and bowed to Prince Cheng. Prince Cheng's cold eyes fell on him, but he didn't say anything. The man who led the way left, and the atmosphere in the room became more and more solemn. Seeing that there was no sound from upstairs, Xiao Jing secretly looked up and saw Prince Cheng's extremely gloomy face. He couldn't help but be startled. He came at the wrong time today when Prince Cheng was in a bad mood. When Xiao Jing came before, Prince Cheng had been in a good mood. Especially after Xiao Yanru left the imperial palace and was sent to Prince Cheng almost treated him kindly. Xiao Jing, are you hiding something from me? Xiao Jing's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and he hurriedly waved his hand. Your Highness, how could I hide something from you? My daughter is by your side now. If I am not loyal to you, how can I send my best daughter to you? Moreover, she didn't have any status now. If he hadn't been forced to this extent, Xiao Qing wouldn't have sent his innocent daughter to Prince Cheng in private. Prince Cheng's identity was noble, but his eldest daughter's identity was also extraordinary. Daughter? Don't you have a daughter? Prince Cheng sneered. The other daughter was just a daughter of a concubine, who was living in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion now. Because she didn't live well in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, she came back to the mansion these days. She was really a nobody. Xiao Jing shook his hand and said. He really didn't like Xiao Jia, and had always thought that this daughter of a concubine was useless. Moreover, she had had such a humiliating experience when she entered Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Nobody. Prince Qing twitched the corner of his mouth, and his smile became colder. He picked up a folded book beside him and suddenly threw it at Xiao Jing's face. Xiao Jing, you're really capable. How could your daughter, who can't be seen in public, make a memorial to me? Xiao Jing was hit so hard that he took 2 steps back and almost fell. He subconsciously reached out to catch the book, but he failed to catch it and it fell to the ground. He felt a burning pain on his face. His face had suffered a heavy blow just now, and the corner of his mouth might have been smashed and bled. Your Highness, what is this? Xiao Jing stammered. Prince Cheng had never treated him like this before, so he could not help feeling flustered and inexplicably guilty. But then he became angry. Did Xiao Jia make trouble again? Xiao Jing thought. You have eyes and see for yourself. Prince Cheng snapped and pointed to the book that had fallen at Xiao Jing's feet. Xiao Jing picked it up in a panic and read it quickly. The more he read, the more panicked and shocked he became. When he finished reading, he looked up at Prince Cheng anxiously. How could this be? How could this be? He held the book with trembling fingers and his face was pale. Yes, I also want to know why it is like this. You wanted to kill the Jiang family, so my people helped you. Now someone even claimed that the petty official was my man. The one who assassinated the useless Chu Qing was also my man. The reason why the petty official died in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion was that I did it on purpose. A steward of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion died, and your good daughter was said to have secretly helped you, so that the petty official of the Ministry of Justice died in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Prince Cheng was furious. He gnashed his teeth in anger. He should have been involved in this matter. Originally, it had nothing to do with him, but now he was suspected of drawing fire to himself. Xiao Jia had planned to marry into his Prince Cheng's mansion, but now she had become the evidence for others to impeach him, which proved that he did have this possibility. Whether it was because of love turning into hatred, other reasons, or ulterior motives, it was possible for him to do this kind of thing. Thinking of his imperial brother's rebuke before, Prince Cheng was furious. He was also angry, very angry. It was not only Xiao Jing who had been smashed, but also him. Now there was a dull pain at the back of his head. What made him even more angry was that 2 of his forces had been destroyed last night. This was all the trouble caused by Xiao Jing. Your Highness, Xiao Jing was so shocked that he couldn't even finish his words. Originally, he wanted to ask Prince Chen for a solution. It would be best if he could deal with Prince Chen. Only by dealing with Prince Chen could he restrain Xiao Wanru. What else do you have to say? Prince Cheng snapped. Your Highness, I don't think the officials of the Ministry of Justice can find anything. They won't find out that the Madam of Jiang died in the hands of a low-ranking official. Xiao Jing gritted his teeth and calmed himself down. At this moment, he had no choice but to hold on. They won't find anything. Prince Cheng said coldly. Xiao Jing, do you feel too good? Do you know how many people want to accuse you now? That's right. Now you basically don't even have the right to attend the imperial court, so you naturally don't know how others accuse you. Xiao Jing's face turned red. Now he indeed didn't have the right to attend the imperial court. Originally, he was an important minister in the imperial court, but because of 1 and 2 accidents, he had to idle in the mansion now. He couldn't even meet the emperor, so how could he be favored by the emperor, let alone see others accuse him? Jiang Shi's death is in the hands of the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice can't find a case, so they push the blame onto me. I'm not that easy to bully, so I should find a few good friends to help me. I'm also very sad that my wife has died, and my residence is in a mess. Do these people hate me for being good? That's right. I'm not that easy to be bullied, so I should find a few good friends to help me. I'm also very sad that my wife has died, and my residence is in a mess. Thinking that he had been valued by the emperor, but now he had fallen into such a situation, Xiao Jing was also very angry and couldn't help but say angrily. He always felt that he was inexplicably unlucky and didn't know which step he had taken wrong. Almost one wrong step led to another, and now it seemed that it was difficult for him to move forward. The current Marquis Xing's mansion was as inconspicuous as Duke Xing's mansion was in the past. Thinking of this, Xiao Jing felt very aggrieved and angry. Xiao Jing, now it's not up to you to decide. If you don't have the guts, then the whole Marquis Xing's mansion will be ruined. I heard that you took her to Marquis Xing's mansion last night. Today, are you going to put her on the family tree? Prince Qing curled his lips and said with a sarcastic smile. Your Highness, I'm doing this for you. I can't let others think that the woman beside you is Xiao Jing panicked and his anger immediately disappeared. He hurriedly looked at Prince Cheng and said flatteringly. Prince Cheng didn't answer him, but said ambiguously, I heard that the new woman in your mansion has a good status and has won the favor of Prime Minister Wen. Then you can go to Prime Minister Wen and ask Prime Minister Wen to help you. As long as Prime Minister Wen helps you, he can say that this matter is the private affairs of your mansion and tear Madam of Jiang from you. In that case, you will be fine. When Prince Qin becomes the emperor, you will get benefits. Chapter 1231. Xiao Wanru didn't expect to see her mother so soon. However, her mother's identity was different today. She was no longer the concubine of the imperial censor's daughter. Today was the day to record her daughter's name in the family tree. Only her mother came. Her daughter was now in Marquis Xing's mansion, but she was seriously ill and couldn't even get up. Her mother had to deal with the matter of recording her daughter's name in the family tree. Xiao Wanru didn't expect to see not only the elders but also the solemn madam of the Prime Minister here. She raised the corner of her mouth silently. Beside Madam of the Prime Minister was Gu Shishu. She sat next to Madam of the Prime Minister, looking weak and well-behaved. When she raised her eyes, she looked extremely gentle. If Xiao Wanru had not dealt with her in this life and the previous life, she would probably have been bewitched by her appearance. However, it was unnecessary now. Her identity was enough to make Gu Shishu stay away from her. Seeing Xiao Wanru come in, Madam of the Prime Minister stood up with the help of her servant girl and was about to bow to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and told Yujia softly, "Help Madam of the Prime Minister sit down." Yujia answered and helped the servant girl help Madam of the Prime Minister sit down. There were many people in the hall, except for Xiao Wanru. Even Xiao Yuanhao specially asked for leave today. At this time, he sat on Xiao Wanru's lap and his eyes fell lightly on his eldest brother, Xiao Hua, who was sitting opposite him. This eldest brother used to be the one he respected and admired the most, but now there was only a complicated look in his eyes. "Madam of the Prime Minister, how is your leg?" After sitting down, Xiao Wanru asked Madam of the Prime Minister sitting beside her. "Thank you, Princess Chen. I have to thank you for what happened in Huaguang Temple that day. I should have come to thank you early, but it's not convenient for me to do that because my leg is getting old," Madam of the Prime Minister said with a wry smile. When in Huaguang Temple, Xiao Wanru went to see Madam of the Prime Minister once at the beginning. At that time, she didn't see Madam of the Prime Minister in person and was stopped by Gu Shishu, for fear that Gu Shishu would be suspicious when she saw her mother. After that, Xiao Wanru didn't go there again. Now it was the first time that she saw Madam of the Prime Minister since she fell. "Madam of the Prime Minister, you are welcome." Xiao Wanru glanced at Madam of the Prime Minister's face with a smile and said with some confusion, "Madam of the Prime Minister is here today." What happened today was a family affair of Marquis Xing's mansion. As an outsider, it was not appropriate for Madam of the Prime Minister to come here. Madam Lu saved my life on the mountain. This time she married into Marquis Xing's mansion. Because of Madam Zhang's matter, it is inconvenient for us to welcome the bride with great fanfare. But she can't be without a family member. I will act as her family member and support her, Madam of the Prime Minister said with a smile. Is Prime Minister going to support Lu Enterprises? Xiao Wanru asked indifferently. Actually, it's not any support. I just saw that she was lonely. She used to be the daughter of an aristocratic family, but because she fell to such a state, it's always unsatisfactory. Lady Wen said gently. Are you familiar with her, madam? Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and said seriously. Well. Madam of the Prime Minister was confused by several questions in a row. Thinking of what Prime Minister Wen had told her last night, she felt inexplicably uneasy. She looked sideways at Lu Yiyang, who was standing aside with her head down, and said, I'm not very familiar with her. Madam Lu is kind, and her experience is pitiful. Madam of the Prime Minister's words were very vague. But no matter how vague she was, her purpose of coming to the mansion today was very clear. Obviously, she wanted to support Lu Yiyang and help her stand up in Marquis Xing's mansion. Xiao Wanru's eyes flashed with a trace of sarcasm. Madam of the Prime Minister had never been a stupid person. However, such a person was unwilling to investigate too much, mainly because of Gu Shishu. She believed whatever Gu Shishu said. She blindly believed in the person she had raised since she was a child, but because of her trust in Gu Shishu, she trampled on other people's daughters at will. On the surface, she just doted on her niece, but in fact, she was so selfish that it made people's hair stand on end. She was unwilling to see Gu Shishu's misery, so she would rather cover it up with more ruthless behavior, and Xiao Wanru could pretend not to see it. As long as it did not harm her interests, she could ignore the pain of others. In the last life, she was driven away in that kind of situation because she wanted to kill her. She was homeless and had such a reputation, and there was no one around to serve her. If not, she could only fall and die in a dirty corner. From this point of view, Madam of the Prime Minister was not only Gu Shishu's accomplice. In this life, she wanted to tear apart Gu Shishu's true colors and let Madam of the Prime Minister see what kind of person the woman she had been protecting was. The third branch also came today. It was the day when Lu Yi and Yang entered the family tree, and it was also the day when their branch officially separated from the family tree. The third madam was too sick to get up. Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kailing came by themselves and sat quietly below at this time. Since everyone was here, Madam of the Prime Minister looked at the people around and said with a smile, "Princess Chen, since everyone is here, why don't we record Madam Lu's name together? From now on, she will be the Marchioness of Marquis Xing's mansion." Since Madame Jiang was no longer here, and Lu Yi and Yang had entered the mansion as a secondary wife, if Xiao Jing applied for the title of Marchioness after a period of time, the title of Marchioness would naturally fall on Lu Yi and Yang. She is just a secondary wife. Why should she be the Marchioness? Third Master Xiao suddenly rolled his eyes and said unhappily. He was really in a bad mood. He was originally the third master of Marquis Xing's mansion. Although he had gained a lot of benefits now, he had been separated because of this woman. If it were not for this bitch who wanted to marry into the family, Madame would not have worried about her daughter's marriage and wholeheartedly wanted to separate. After returning, Third Madame also analyzed this matter with him. Although Third Master Xiao was a little displeased before, it was just displeasure. Later, he felt extremely angry. Madame Jiang was not a good person, but this woman did not seem to be a good person either. The more Third Master Xiao thought about it, the angrier he became. He was very angry, and his words were also very blunt. In front of so many people, Xiao Jing could not bear it anymore. His face darkened and he said sternly, "Third brother, how can you say that? Did I say something wrong? Second brother, you really put in a lot of effort to marry into the family for such a woman. You would rather drive our branch out for her. Today, I don't think she is a stunning beauty. She is just a woman. The servant girls and old maids in the mansion are much better looking than her. Second brother, you really don't have to drive our third branch out for her." Third Master Xiao was angry. He tried his best to criticize Lu Yi and Yang, making her sound like a servant girl and old maids. He also pushed the matter of Third Madam's separation to Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing was furious. He slammed his hand on the table and said, "How can you say that? Did I want to drive you out?" Xiao Jing was also very angry. He was annoyed because the third branch was going to split up. Why not? Is it? Second brother, didn't you raise this daughter from your mistress? You actually want to drive my two daughters away for the sake of this daughter from your mistress. Second brother, you are so kind. Third Master Xiao was angry because of Third Madam's crying, so he vented all his anger on Xiao Jing. In the past, he had always been afraid of Xiao Jing, but he was not stingy. At this time, he was angry, so he did not have so many scruples. Moreover, Third Madam also asked him to make a scene today to vent his anger. For so many years, the third branch had been weak and had been bullied by the second branch. He had not been able to vent his anger. Now, he did not have so many scruples. Third Master Xiao was here to make trouble today. His words became more and more unpleasant. Xiao Jing was so angry that he wanted to slap his younger brother. However, there were so many people at this time, so it was not convenient for him to do it. Second brother, are you feeling guilty? Such a woman. Third Master's eyes fell on Yi and Yang and he smacked his lips sarcastically. Second brother, did you find this woman from a brothel? She said she was the daughter of the censor's mansion. If she was really the daughter of the censor's mansion, how could such a thing happen? Whose daughter could become someone's mistress when she was in trouble? She might as well commit suicide to show her chastity. Several clan elders nodded when they heard this. In fact, they also thought so. A daughter who was in trouble could be anything, but she chose to become someone's mistress. It was really hard to say what would happen to such a woman. It was indeed possible that she fell into a brothel. She was a young lady who had no one around her and had not seen much of the world. It was understandable that she was sold. Could it be that this yin yang was really found from a brothel? Thinking of this, several clan elders looked at each other and felt that it was better to wait and see. Although they had received Xiao Jing's order before, if they really found a woman from a brothel to be the madam of the Xiao family in charge of Marquis Xing's mansion, how would the other daughters of the Xiao family have the face to marry in the future? Every family had 1 or 2 daughters and granddaughters. Even if it was not for themselves, they had to make plans for their daughters and granddaughters. If you talk nonsense again, get out of here. Xiao Jing was angry and his face was livid. Second brother, you are really angry. It seems that you are really guilty. Master San looked at Xiao Jing provocatively. He had already thrown caution to the wind and was determined to make Xiao Jing suffer. When he thought about how Xiao Jing had caused his own daughter to become a mistress of a side branch because of a mistress, he couldn't suppress his anger no matter what. Even if Xiao Jing beat him today, he would say these words. You. Xiao Jing stood up with a cold look in his eyes. He was so angry that he really wanted to beat him. Second brother, what do you mean? Do you want to beat your own brother after becoming a bitch from a brothel? Third master stood up, jumped on his feet and said angrily. His reaction was even stronger than Xiao Jing's. Seeing that the situation was not good, the clan elders hurriedly came over to persuade them and pulled them back to sit down again. Looking at the mess, Madam of the Prime Minister frowned. No wonder Shishu and Yi Nyang begged her to come here. It was obvious that Marquis Xing's mansion could not treat Yi Nyang well. Madam of the Prime Minister's words were so harsh, which was really annoying. Princess Chen. She glanced over and saw Xiao Wanru sitting aside and said with a smile. What's the matter? Xiao Wanru lowered her head and tidied up her cuffs. After hearing her words, she raised her watery eyes, which were quiet and gentle, as if her mood was not affected by the noise just now. Madam of the Prime Minister felt inexplicably depressed. Chapter 1232. Princess Chen, it's not good to keep quarreling like this. Madam of the Prime Minister coughed in a low voice and said implicitly. Well, what's wrong with it? Xiao Wanru rolled her watery eyes and said with a little modesty, I was thinking about Grandma's health just now, so I didn't notice it. Did they quarrel? Madam of the Prime Minister was sullen. They had quarreled so fiercely, but Xiao Wanru just noticed it. It's not a good idea to quarrel like this. It will damage the reputation of Marquis Xing's mansion. Madam of the Prime Minister took a deep breath, suppressed her sullenness, and said with a smile. The reputation of Marquis Xing's mansion. Thank you for your concern. In fact, how much reputation is left now? Xiao Wanru's lips changed slightly, and her eyes were cold. She said without hesitation. Madam of the Prime Minister choked and wanted to vomit blood. Was this what Princess Chen, the daughter of the Xiao family, should say? Princess Chen, even if you don't do it for yourself, you have to do it for the reputation of the little heir. After all, the Marquis's mansion will belong to the little heir in the future. Madam of the Prime Minister changed the direction and tried to persuade her. She wanted Xiao Wanru to come forward and suppress the quarrel between Xiao Jing and Third Master Xiao. With Princess Chen's identity, even if Third Master Xiao was a reckless person, he would not dare to contradict Princess Chen. Now everything in the mansion belongs to Second Uncle, so it's up to Second Uncle to decide what to do. If it's up to me, of course I will stand on Third Uncle's side. We can't allow any woman with an unknown background to come into the mansion, Xiao Wanru said disapprovingly. Madam of the Prime Minister felt that she could not go on with this conversation. Her words made her uncomfortable. Did Princess Chen also come to make trouble today? She secretly looked Xiao Wanru up and down. Seeing that she looked natural, she couldn't figure out her attitude for a moment. Princess Chen, you are a junior, but you are of noble status. If you say something, it's better than them quarreling like this. Madam of the Prime Minister said again. Madam of the Prime Minister, do you think I am too indifferent? Xiao Wanru asked lightly with cold eyes. I don't mean that. It's good to be a harmonious family. They have already come into the mansion. Can't they have a good discussion? Madam of the Prime Minister smiled a little awkwardly. Although she thought so, she felt a little embarrassed when Xiao Wanru pointed it out so mercilessly. Third uncle's intentions are also very clear. He wants people to believe that she is the daughter of the former censor. We can't just rely on rumors. Our Xiao family still has to meet people in the future. We can't just rely on rumors to determine a person's identity. There are so many women in the Xiao family, so we can't let them ruin the marriage plans of the Xiao family. Xiao Wanru looked at everyone with a serious face and said slowly. This sentence was not spoken lightly, and many people heard it. The clan elders nodded one after another. It was indeed reasonable. Rumors were rumors, after all. Rumors could be said in this way, and they could also be said in that way. They couldn't act according to rumors, right? Xiao Jing looked at his niece, who was sitting in front of him. He still couldn't see through her. He had a feeling that she wasn't what she looked like on the surface, but when he took a closer look, he didn't find anything wrong with her. Princess Chen, Madam of the Prime Minister, my wet nurse can be a witness. Yi Nyang took 2 steps forward, bowed to Xiao Wanru and Madam of the Prime Minister, and said. Of course, she had been prepared for this. Even if Princess Chen didn't say it, she would bring it up. Your wet nurse? Madam of the Prime Minister answered and asked in surprise. My wet nurse was also separated from me at that time, but I found her before. She's here today. Many people know that she used to be my wet nurse. After staying in the capital city, she also keeps in touch with some old servants, Lu Yinyang said. Since she's here, bring her up. Xiao Jing waved his hand and called a servant over, asking him to bring her up. After a while, an old maid in her 50s was brought down. She knelt in the hall and kowtowed to everyone in the hall before saying, I'm our Mrs. Wet Nurse. When our miss was in trouble, she disappeared all of a sudden. I could only return to my own home. For so many years, I have never given up looking for her. Are you really the wet nurse of Censor Lu's family? Third Master Xiao looked the old maid up and down and asked. I am. If you don't believe me, you can ask some servants in other mansions. After I returned home, I still kept in touch with some old people. At that time, a group of servants in the mansion was scattered to other mansions, the old maid said. Then how can you be sure that this is your miss? An elder asked. Miss was brought up by me. How can I not know her? After so many years, although Miss has grown up, her foundation is still there. Moreover, there is a birthmark on Miss's wrist. I can recognize it at a glance. The old maid answered seriously. Miss, you've grown up. Her words were very reasonable, and every word was helping to verify Lu Yinyang's identity. A smile appeared on Madam of the Prime Minister's face. She turned to Xiao Wanru and said, Princess Chen, you see, Miss Censor's identity is true. No one wants Madame Lu to fall into such a situation. She was very lonely at that time, with no relatives and no one she knew. In fact, it was very pitiful for her to fall into such a situation. Madam of the Prime Minister sighed and said in a kind voice. Xiao Wanru looked up and fixed her eyes on the old maid. Of course, she knew the identity of this old maid. This was a part of her grandmother's plan. Of course, it was not her grandmother who did it. A maid rushed in and said, Master Ho, there are a few people outside who say that they are Madame Lu's relatives. They say that they want to see Madame Lu. Lu Yinyang's relatives. How could she have relatives? Lu Yinyang was stunned at first, and then her face became panicked. She looked up at Xiao Jing and hoped that it was not what she thought. Where did these idlers come from? Madame Lu's relatives are not here at all. Drive them away, Xiao Jing said unhappily. The sudden appearance of these people made him feel uneasy, so it was better to drive them away. Don't. Second brother can let an old maid come here. Are you going to refuse to recognize your relatives when they come? Third Master Xiao jumped out again. He just couldn't see Xiao Jing doing well today. He just wanted to stir up trouble. Third brother, can't it be settled if you don't stir up trouble today? Xiao Jing's face darkened and he scolded sternly. Second brother, how can you say that? Did I say anything wrong? An old maid came in and people believed her when she said that she was a wet nurse, but no one believed that her relatives came. If she said that she was a relative, could it be that Imperial Censor Lu came? That would be interesting. Third Master rolled his eyes indifferently and said. He really went all out today. Even if he had to fight against Xiao Jing, he would not let Xiao Jing get what he wanted. Thinking of what Third Madam had said to him before, Third Master was burning with anger. Anyway, he was going to separate from the family and would not be a member of Marquis Xing's mansion in the future, so there was no need to be afraid of him. They had already fallen out, so there was nothing else to say. Since they are here, let them in. Xiao Wanru said indifferently. Since Xiao Wanru said so, it was inappropriate for Xiao Jing to stop them. He frowned and nodded. After a while, the old maid came in. Unexpectedly, it was a rather old madam who walked in. Behind her were a maid and an old maid. The wet nurse's face changed dramatically and she knelt on the ground in shock. Her mother's eyes flashed in panic and she thought that it was not good. Old madam stepped forward and bowed to Xiao Wanru and Madam of the Prime Minister in front of the hall. You are old Madam of Imperial Censor Lu's mansion. Madam of the Prime Minister suddenly stood up after debating for a while and said in astonishment. Yes, I didn't expect that Madam of the Prime Minister still remembers me. Old Madam nodded. Is Imperial Censor Lu going to be transferred back to the capital city? Madam of the Prime Minister asked in surprise. She had never heard Prime Minister Wen mention this before. No, I'm afraid that he will never be able to return to the capital city after making such a mistake, Old Madam said bitterly. Madam Dowager said bitterly. After being implicated in such a matter, it was almost impossible for her son to make a comeback. I came to the capital this time to visit my hometown. I'm getting old, and I might not be able to return to my hometown even once in my life. Old Madam sighed. She was from the capital city, and her ancestral land was in a town outside the city. After her son was demoted, she suddenly wanted to go back to her hometown to have a look. Since she would never be able to return to the capital city in her life, this was the last time at her old age. Imperial Censor Lu originally did not allow it, but he failed to persuade Old Madam, so he could only ask someone to accompany her to the capital city. Fortunately, Old Madam was in good health, so she had nothing to do along the way. In order to take care of her, she walked for a long time before arriving in the capital city. At that time, Imperial Censor Lu was demoted. It was inconvenient for Old Madam to see her old friends in the capital city after coming back this time, so she quietly went to the ancestral land outside the city. No one expected that an old madam who was demoted to the Imperial Censor's mansion thousands of miles away would actually come back to worship her ancestors. Originally, no one knew about this, but coincidentally, she met Nanny Gao. Nanny Gao was the personal nanny of Rui, a great elder princess, and had some relationship with Old Madam's maiden family. After accidentally seeing her, Nanny Gao did not dislike her and specially came to visit her. Then when she came to visit for the second time, in addition to reminiscing about the old days, it was this matter. After that, there was the matter that Rui, a great elder princess, found the identity of the daughter of the Imperial Censor's mansion for her mother, and there were more and more rumors outside. After Old Madam briefly talked about her own affairs, she turned to the crowd and looked at them one by one. Finally, her eyes fell on Anyang's face. After looking her up and down for a few times, she said slowly, "It is said that my granddaughter is here, so I specially came to have a look." "Is it the one in front of me?" Anyang panicked and her face turned pale. She subconsciously took a step back and her lips trembled. Finally, she made up her mind, gritted her teeth, and suddenly rushed over. She hugged old Madam's leg and burst into tears. "Grandma, Grandma, I didn't expect to see you again. I thought I would never see you again in this life." After saying that, she choked with sobs. I pay my respects to old Madam." The nanny, who was kneeling on the ground, also hurriedly sat up straight and saluted old Madam. Old Madam pushed Anyang away forcefully and looked her up and down for a few times. She frowned tightly and was about to speak, but Xiao Jing interrupted her. "Come on, help old Madam to sit down and talk." An old maid came over and hurriedly reached out to help old Madam to sit down on the chair next to her. "Old Madam, Anyang is your granddaughter, and now she is my wife. Speaking of which, our two families are relatives now, and you are also my elder. When you left, there was a rumor that a granddaughter was missing, so you asked your old friends in the capital city to look for her. Now it can be regarded as a reunion. Congratulations." Xiao Jing narrowed his eyes and said with a smile. Chapter 1233. There was indeed such a saying at the beginning. Imperial Censor Lu was demoted. In the chaos, a daughter was lost. At that time, some old acquaintances in the capital city had asked someone to look for her, and many aristocratic families knew about it. After that, they didn't find her, so they left it unsettled. The reason why Nyang could be believed by many people quickly was that there was such a past at that time. Imperial Censor Lu was demoted from the capital city, and it was impossible for him to come back. Now there was a Miss Imperial Censor in the capital city, and her age matched. Even the wet nurse, who had been disappointed with her at that time, said so it was naturally true. Xiao Wanru's watery eyes curved slightly. She fanned the round fan in her hand unhurriedly a few times, causing a chill, and quietly watched the change of the situation. She wanted to see how Xiao Jing would deal with it. Xiao Jing's words sounded very gentle, but the threat in his words was very obvious. If Madame Dowager really met him by chance, she would not really offend him and ruin his plan. It was a good thing that his granddaughter became Madame of Marquis Xing. Anyone who got Madame of Marquis Xing for free would not care about anything else. It didn't matter whether it was true or not. At least it was enough to have the backing of Marquis Xing's mansion in the capital city. Maybe Imperial Censor Lu could come back because of it. Duke Xing's mansion used to be a family of powerful ministers. Although it had declined now, what did an madam in a remote place know? She didn't dare to really offend Xiao Jing. Nyang was originally in a panic. Hearing Xiao Jing's words, she immediately understood. After wiping away her tears, she stepped forward and bowed to Madame Dowager again. "Grandma, I am so happy to see you. I thought I would never see you again in this life. Now it's great. You can stay in the capital city to accompany me. As for father, there is always a way." Anyang's method was the same as Xiao Jing's. She said it with a hint of a threat. She was afraid that Madame Dowager would accidentally reveal the truth. After all, she and the missing Miss Lu did not resemble each other at all. When Xiao Jing said these words, he didn't think it was a big deal. After all, he had a high status. However, when Yang said it, it inexplicably made people feel a little sarcastic. The identity of this woman was still unknown, but she treated her as Madame of Marquis Xing and said that there was always a way. How could a demoted official like her, a woman of the inner courtyard, have the final say when she wanted to return to the capital city? The so-called "there was always a way" was really ignorant and ridiculous. Third Master Xiao laughed mercilessly and said, "Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Watch your words, third brother." Xiao Jing's face darkened. "Why should I be careful with my words? One look and I can tell that it's fake. You still want to use the Marquis's residence as a threat?" Pfft. Third Master was getting more and more self-indulgent, saying whatever he wanted. "Third brother, old madam has already admitted it. How can you say such things and humiliate sister-in-law? Xiao Jing really couldn't stand it anymore. He picked up the cup beside him and threw it at Third Master Xiao's feet. Third Master Xiao was shocked. He did not expect Xiao Jing to really make a move. Wait, when did I admit it? The old madam suddenly said. That's right, second brother. She didn't admit it at all. You are the only one who is in a hurry to acknowledge her. Third Master laughed when he heard this. What do you mean, old madam? Xiao Jing looked at the old madam with a gloomy look in his eyes. Anyang already felt that something was wrong. She knelt down with a plop, hugged old madam's knees and cried, Grandmother, although I am the marquise, I had no choice. At that time, there was no other way. You. How could you not recognize me just because of some false reputation? Old madam, I had no choice but to have Anyang follow me. If you think that she has violated the rules of unmarried women, I apologize to you here. Xiao Jing stood up and bowed deeply to the old madam, giving her enough face. Based on this face and the face of Marquis Xing's mansion, as long as one was sensible, he would definitely acknowledge Anyang. Old madam, since your granddaughter has become like this, she is finally fine now. Madam of the civil minister also said. She seemed to be sighing. No one wanted such a thing to happen. Even if Anyang was a mistress, she had no choice. At that time, she was an orphan girl who was weak and delicate. It was good for her to survive. The three of them spoke one after another, and there was a hint of coercion in their words. Madam of the civil minister, stop talking. If you continue, old madam will think that our marquise mansion is coercion. You'd better let old madam say it herself. Whether it is true or not, there must be a reason. Old madam has not told the truth until now. Could it be that there is something wrong with her identity? Xiao Wanru interrupted the three of them rudely. As soon as she spoke, the other three could only let her finish even if they wanted to say it. Being interrupted by Xiao Wanru, old madam could finally breathe a sigh of relief. She looked at Anyang coldly and said, Who are you? Why did you pretend to be my granddaughter? I don't know you. Grandmother. Anyang was shocked. Madam, I don't care who you are or who you are. It has nothing to do with me. You can't ruin my granddaughter's reputation. Even if you are the madam of Marquis Xing, I will resist to the end. Old madam interrupted Anyang coldly and became more and more impolite. An old maid standing behind her stepped forward and looked at Anyang, who was kneeling in front of old madam, warily. Madam, you can pretend to be someone else, but you pretend to be our Mississippi. Our miss looks completely different from you. Grandmother, I am really your granddaughter. How can you be so cruel? Anyang was so anxious that her heart trembled, but she did not dare to show it on her face. She grabbed the hem of old madam's clothes tightly and begged with tears. Xiao Jing's face darkened. This old maid really did not know how to appreciate favors. She refused to admit that she was the granddaughter of Madam of Marquis Xing and insisted that she was not her. Ha ha ha, as expected, she is a fake. Second brother, where did you find such a bitch? How could she make such a big fuss for such a bitch? Third Master Xiao laughed so hard that he swayed back and forth. He felt very relieved. Old madam, you have to be careful when you speak. This is not your mansion. If you speak carelessly, you will have to bear the responsibility. Xiao Jing ignored Third Master Xiao and said sternly. Don't worry, Marquis. If this is fake, I am willing to bear all the responsibility. Old madam said calmly. Xiao Jing slammed his hand on the table and said, Bear the responsibility. I am afraid that the mother of a former imperial censor can't bear the responsibility. If Marquis doesn't believe it, you can ask the people of the Ministry of Justice to verify it on the spot. Old madam said coldly and was not frightened by Xiao Jing's momentum. Xiao Jing trembled with anger. He did not know where this damn old woman came from. She was unmoved by force or persuasion. However, her identity had been confirmed by Madam of the Prime Minister just now. Ho! Marquis, isn't she the servant girl of the Infanta? A timid voice suddenly came in. No one knew when she had appeared at the door. It was an old maid. She seemed to have come to report something. After coming in and seeing Anyang, she was stunned for a while and said in a trembling voice. She had said it very softly, but after old madam's words, there was a moment of silence, so the old maid's voice was very obvious. My mother's servant girl. Xiao Wanru raised her watery eyes and said before Xiao Jing, go, bring her here. Yu Jie hurried forward and led the old maid in. The old maid knelt in front of Xiao Wanru. Tell me what is going on. Xiao Wanru asked calmly. Since it was her mother, she could ask clearly. This is the servant girl of the Infanta. She used to follow the Infanta. After the Infanta returned to the mansion, she still served the Infanta. After the Infanta had an accident, she disappeared. I didn't expect that she was with you, Marquis. The old maid reported. Second uncle, what is going on? Why is my mother's servant girl second uncle's servant girl? Moreover, she was raised outside and gave birth to a daughter. Could it be that there was something mysterious about it? Please explain it to me, second uncle. Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and looked at Xiao Jing coldly. Finally, she could raise her doubts justifiably. Third Master Xiao was also stunned for a moment and looked at Anyang in astonishment. Just now, Anyang mostly lowered her head or was sobbing, so it was inconvenient for him to keep staring at her. After taking a closer look, he actually saw something. He patted his thigh and said, yes, she is the servant girl of eldest sister-in-law. What's her name? She is the only servant girl who came back with eldest sister-in-law. He really didn't expect that there were many servant girls around Infanta Qinghua. No one had expected that this servant girl would follow Xiao Jing and take eldest sister-in-law's servant girl as his mistress. His words sounded shameless. No wonder he wanted to find the identity of the imperial censor's daughter. It turns out that she is eldest sister-in-law's servant girl. Third Master Xiao suddenly came to a realization. He looked at Xiao Jing and saw that his face was livid and pale at this time. He laughed out loud to vent his anger. How dare you? Xiao Jing said sternly, someone, drag this lowly servant who is talking nonsense away and punish her severely. Wait, this matter is related to my mother. Before we figure it out, I'll see who dares to do it. Xiao Wanru sneered. Her cold eyes fell on Xiao Jing's face, giving him tit for tat. At this moment, she no longer hid her sharpness. The hatred of killing my mother is absolutely irreconcilable. If this woman is really related to my mother, she might have secretly attacked my mother. It seemed shameless on the surface to take eldest sister-in-law's servant girl as his mistress, but if one thought about it carefully, it would be terrible. Did this servant girl stay with Infanta Qinghua long ago, or was she taken in later? If she was Xiao Jing's servant girl, did it mean that Xiao Jing had never been kind to the brother and sister-in-law of the first branch? The brother and sister-in-law of the first branch were no longer alive. One died in a foreign land, and the other died of madness. None of them had a good ending, but Xiao Jing had benefited from it. In addition, what Madame of the Jiang family had said at the gate of the mansion before, this topic was not only offensive. Madame of the civil minister, who was sitting on the top, changed her face dramatically. She was not stupid, and she was a little suspicious of Anyang. But even so, she still supported Anyang. But now, if what Madame of the civil minister said was true, she would be the one to lose face. For a moment, she was angry and resentful, and glared at Gu Shishu next to her. Princess Chen, you can't talk nonsense. Xiao Jing was angry and resentful. Things had come to a head, and he had to confront Xiao Wanru, especially in front of so many people. This was the last thing he wanted. Chapter 1234. Second uncle, why are you afraid to say it? Could what second aunt said at the door be true? Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jing fearlessly and said without dodging his gaze. Even if you don't do it for yourself, you should think about how, Xiao Jing gritted his teeth in anger. Rest assured, second uncle. I agree with everything my sister said. Xiao Yuanhao stood up and stood beside Xiao Wanru. The little boy was not short. Standing beside Xiao Wanru, he looked fearless despite his childish face. He was no longer the child who only knew how to play in the past. Second uncle, if you can find out the cause of my father's and mother's deaths, I will also thank you. As for this woman, since she has something to do with my mother, please hand her over, Xiao Yuanhao said coldly. You, how dare you? Xiao Jing was so angry that he almost vomited blood. It was okay for Xiao Wanru to contradict him. After all, she was Princess Chen, so he, a disgraced Marquis Xing, couldn't compare with her. The only thing that could suppress her was her seniority. Now even Xiao Yuanhao came to join in the fun. Did they really think he was a piece of paper? Second uncle, if I am being presumptuous, I am willing to apologize to you. But if you really have something to do with the death of my father and mother, don't blame me for being disrespectful. Xiao Yuanhao stood upright in front of Xiao Jing, took 2 steps forward, and stood in front of Xiao Wanru. Looking at the little boy in front of her, Xiao Wanru's eyes turned red, and she tried hard to suppress the bitterness in her heart. In this life, besides her maternal grandma, she also had her younger brother. Even though her younger brother was so young, he subconsciously protected her behind him. But in the last life, they were all ruined by Marquis Xing's mansion. The bitterness in her eyes turned into a touch of blood, and she hid it deep in her eyes. Xiao Wanru looked at Madam of the Prime Minister beside her and said coldly, Madam of the Prime Minister, do you understand? Madam of the Prime Minister was also very regretful at this time. It seemed that the matter could not be cleaned up. Why did she get involved in it? In fact, it was very clear that Anyang was not an imperial censor's daughter at all. She was just a maid of Infanta Qinghua. No one knew when she had hooked up with Xiao Jing. Had the truth been exposed? Moreover, this matter was not simple. It was just a matter of a servant girl, which was not a big deal. Even if her reputation was ruined, it was not a big deal. But now it was related to the death of Infanta Qinghua and the former heir of Marquis Xing, which was a big deal. Not to mention her, even Bian Wenxiang couldn't resist it. Rui, a great elder princess, was not easy to be trifled with. At present, Princess Chen was famous for being difficult to deal with because of Prince Chen's protection. What did Madam say? Xiao Wanru continued asking. This matter is your mansion's own business. I just think that Anyang is my savior, so I believe what she said. Since what she said is not true, of course, I have nothing to say. Madam of the Prime Minister sighed and said helplessly. Madam. Anyang was very anxious when she heard this. In the current situation, she knew that no one would believe her no matter what she said. She turned to Xiao Wanru and said sadly, Princess Chen, it is obviously Rui, and great elder princess's idea that I pretend to be the imperial censor's daughter. You also know that. Why do you say so now? His words caused the expressions of everyone present to change. My maternal grandmother has always had a bad attitude towards Marquis Xing's mansion. She has quarreled with my grandmother several times before. Why is she so good to you? She even gave you advice and pretended to be you? Xiao Wanru said with sarcasm in her eyes, what are you going to do next? Are you going to say that it was my maternal grandmother who asked you to follow second uncle? Her words made Anyang dumbfounded. She stammered and was so anxious that her forehead was covered with sweat. Princess Chen, I am Infanta's maid. Yes, I just knew it. So what? You are my mother's maid, but after my mother died, you followed second uncle. I really don't believe that there is nothing wrong with it. Guards! Xiao Wanru said sharply. 2 guards of Prince Chen's mansion appeared at the door. Xiao Wanru said, take her away. The 2 guards stepped forward and were about to take her away. Xiao Jing was so angry that his face turned livid. How dare you? Who dares to take action? Second uncle, what if I take action? If second uncle is really wronged, how, and I will definitely offer a humble apology. But if second uncle, please forgive me and my brother for punching your parents. Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Jing coldly and did not waver at all. The two guards took one of Anyang's arms and pulled her down. Seeing that the situation was not good, Anyang struggled desperately and shouted for help, Marquis, Marquis, save me. Xiao Jing was the only one who could save her now. Xiao Jing was angry and anxious. He shouted, stop them. I'll see who can take them out of Marquis Xing's mansion today. Second uncle, do you have to go against me? Do you have to hide the real cause of my father's and mother's death? Xiao Wanru said slowly with a cold look in her eyes. At this moment, Xiao Jing actually saw a cold and bloodthirsty look in his weak niece's eyes. She was weak and slender, but she had such a strong murderous look. Xiao Jing involuntarily took a step back. He felt his heart beating wildly, but at this time, he couldn't retreat. Princess Chen, even if this woman lied to you and me, you can't take her away directly. You have to interrogate her clearly. This was to admit that Anyang was not the censor's daughter. Marquis. Anyang exclaimed and struggled hard in a panic. Suddenly, she pushed away the two guards and rushed to Xiao Jing. Marquis, save me. Marquis, save me. Xiao Jing winked at her and glared at her fiercely. Anyang immediately understood. She turned in a different direction in front of Xiao Jing and rushed to Madam of the Prime Minister. She cried and said, Madam of the Prime Minister, save me. I don't know anything. I didn't hurt the princess and the heir. Please save me. Looking at Anyang who fell in front of her, Madam of the Prime Minister took a step back and looked terrible. Aunt, save her. She also saved your life. Gu Shishu whispered in her ear. Madam of the Prime Minister was in a dilemma. She glared at Gu Shishu and had to beg for mercy. No matter what, it was true that Anyang was her savior. Princess Chen, catch her. This woman actually knows martial arts. Xiao Wanru suddenly shouted and stepped back. Xiao Yuanhao protected her and looked at Anyang with vigilance and a nervous look. Your Highness, she knows martial arts. I saw that she is so strong that the two guards couldn't pull her over just now. She even kicked the two guards several times, and the guards loosened their grip after being kicked by her. Yujia also stood in front of Xiao Wanru to protect her and shouted anxiously, she's good at martial arts. If she tripped someone, she might even fall to her death. Madam of the Prime Minister's face turned blue, green, and then red. After a pause, she pushed away Gu Shishu, who was holding her. Shishu turned around and walked out. After Madam of the Prime Minister fell, she had been recalling how she fell. Gu Shishu didn't get close to her, and no one else was close enough to trip her. Anyang was the same. At that time, there was a step between them. It seemed that everything indicated that Madam of the Prime Minister fell by herself. After Madam of the Prime Minister returned to the mansion, she also told Wen Shiqi about it. Wen Shiqi said that there was another possibility, that was, someone who knew martial arts nearby tripped her or threw a stone at the acupoints on her legs. In that case, she would definitely be hit. Of course, the person had to be close to her, otherwise she would be discovered. There were only women around her. Madam of the Prime Minister didn't think that anyone knew martial arts, so she just let it go. Now she actually found that Anyang knew martial arts. What else could she not understand? No wonder she had brought ginseng with her early. No wonder she could save her. It was obviously a trap for her to fall into. This woman was a liar and an impostor. She wanted someone to introduce her to a madam of an aristocratic family, so she set her eyes on Qin Haodong. It seemed that Qin Haodong's niece was not completely ignorant. When everyone was surprised just now, Gu Shishu's expression was not very surprised. Originally, Madam of the Prime Minister thought that Gu Shishu could keep her composure. Now she found that it was not that she could keep her composure. It was obvious that she was also involved in it. Otherwise, it would not be so coincidental that they met. It was Gu Shishu who took her to that place. She almost died. Her niece, whom she doted on a lot, almost schemed to kill her. Madam of the Prime Minister wanted to slap Gu Shishu on the spot. She treated her like a pearl, but this bitch schemed to kill her. Madam of the Prime Minister was so angry that her legs went soft. She left Marquis Xing's mansion in anger. Gu Shishu was stunned for a moment. She felt that something was wrong and hurriedly chased after her. Take her away. Seeing that Madam of the Prime Minister understood and turned to leave, Xiao Wanru said sternly. 2 more guards came out of the door. 4 guards came together. Xiao had received Xiao Jing's order and was going to pounce on Madam of the Prime Minister. Unexpectedly, Madam of the Prime Minister left without saying anything. She could only turn to Xiao Jing and escape to Xiao Jing's place. Princess Chen, this is Marquis Xing's mansion, not your Prince Chen's mansion. Xiao Jing took 2 steps forward, blocked Xiao Er's way, and said angrily. Second uncle, I'm sorry. Xiao Wanru said coldly. The guards came over and went to pull her away. Xiao Jing was furious and fought with several guards. His kung fu was good, and he didn't look as harmless as he used to. After all, he was Marquis Xing, so the guards of Prince Chen's mansion didn't dare to hurt him. 2 guards of Marquis Xing's mansion jumped out of nowhere and fought with each other. What's going on? Are they fighting? A gentle voice with a smile suddenly came from the door, which made the tense atmosphere stiffen for a moment. No one knew when Chu Luchen had appeared at the door. On the gorgeous black and white imperial robe, a 4-clawed golden python was shining with sharp claws and teeth. With his hands clasped behind his back, he was elegant and handsome, which was the complete opposite of the atmosphere in the hall. He raised his handsome eyes and gave off a gentle and noble aura. Even though he was just standing there, the atmosphere around him shocked Xiao Jing. He took a step back subconsciously, and his heart beat wildly. Chu Luchen was here. Why was he here? Shouldn't he be in the palace at this time? Chapter 1235. Chu Luchen walked in slowly, looking elegant and noble. When he came to Xiao Wanru, he slowly turned his head, reached out to hold Xiao Wanru's hand and walked a few steps towards Xiao Jing. He slightly raised his long and narrow eyes, with a lazy smile on his lips and his eyes as dark as ink. Marquis Xing, are you going to fight with me? He waved his hand, and the guards of Prince Chen's mansion stepped back. Seeing Chu Luchen, Xiao Jing seemed to be poured a basin of ice water on his head. He sobered up from the beginning to the end and signaled his guards to step back. He composed himself and bowed to Chu Luchen, Your Highness. Did my princess offend Marquis Xing? Chu Luchen asked curiously. No, I was too aggressive just now. Please forgive me, Princess Chen. Xiao Jing lowered his head and apologized to Xiao Wanru. Second uncle, I was also too aggressive just now. Xiao Wanru said softly. She looked gentle and didn't look as aggressive as before. Since it's not my princess's fault, what does Marquis Xing mean? Could it be that you don't like this princess? If so, Marquis Xing, you'd better tell me, and I will definitely apologize to you on behalf of my princess. Chu Liuchen's face became cold and his handsome face became gloomy. It was completely different from the genial expression just now, as if he had become another person in an instant. He had long heard that Prince Chen was temperamental. One moment, he was beautiful, and the next moment, he could be a bloody storm. Xiao Jing really regretted it. Why did he fight with the guards of Prince Chen's mansion in the heat of the moment? Your Highness, my father fought with the guards of Prince Chen's mansion because he was cheated just now. Please forgive my father for being cheated. Xiao Hua walked over and said after bowing to Chu Luchen. He and Zhao Shiran had been standing behind and didn't come up to persuade him. But now they couldn't stand it anymore and came forward to explain. Cheated? Who? Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and his face became gentle again, as if it wasn't him who had a gloomy face just now. It's this girl. She claimed that she was the daughter of the censor. After father let her enter the mansion, he found out that she was a liar. She turned out to be a servant girl. She even wanted to pretend to be the daughter of the censor in order to enter Marquis Xing's mansion and replace mother. Xiao Hua lowered his head, looking very sad. His mother had just passed away, and his father wanted to marry another woman. As her son, of course he was angry. But no matter how angry he was, he couldn't go against his own father. Fake daughter. Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and looked at his mother, who had been trembling. It's fake. She's just a maid. Xiao Hua's face was pale with anger. Anyone would be angry when something like this happened to their family. Then take him away. The Ministry of Justice has dealt with this kind of thing many times. Chu Luchen ordered gently. This kind of thing should be handled by the Ministry of Justice. I will follow your orders, Your Highness. Xiao Hua took 2 steps back and bowed. 2 guards came over and pulled his mother away. She still wanted to struggle, but Xiao Jing's eyes fell on her fiercely. She didn't dare to move and followed the 2 guards away obediently. Has the matter of the family tree been dealt with? Chu Luchen asked Xiao Wanru this time. It will be done soon. 3rd uncle's branch has been separated. Originally, there was still this woman, but now it's unnecessary. Xiao Wanru answered softly. Marquis Xing, can we start? Chu Luchen nodded and looked at Xiao Jing. I have to take the princess with me. I have to take princess to the palace to see imperial grandmother. Okay, right now. Xiao Jing couldn't wait for them to leave, so he said hurriedly. What happened next was much simpler. Without the matter of Yi and Yang, the other things were not a big deal. Xiao Jing was very well behaved now. He didn't dare to say a word or ask anything, for fear that he would accidentally provoke Prince Chen. Prince Chen was ruthless, so he really didn't dare to provoke this prince. The frightened elders didn't dare to say anything. They took out the family tree and changed all the branches of the 3rd branch into side branches. Then they offered a few sticks of incense in front of the ancestral tablets. After they knelt down and worshipped for a while, the matter was over. Xiao Wanru followed them and asked Chu Luchen to wait in the Piaoyin courtyard. She went to the 3rd madam's courtyard. The 3rd madam was still lying in bed, but she was in good spirits. Seeing Xiao Wanru come in, she struggled to sit up, and Xiao Wanru reached out to hold her. 3rd aunt, lie down first. The 3rd madam lay down again, and the others in the room left. 3rd aunt, maternal grandmother has already selected a few candidates. In a few days, Gao Momo will send them to your new residence. 3rd aunt can choose 2 suitable ones from them to help 3rd older sister and 4th older sister get engaged. These people are not from big aristocratic families, but fortunately, their families are clean and they all have good character. If they want to get married, their age should be similar to 3rd older sister and 4th older sister. That was to say, if they wanted to get married in a hurry, they could. Thank you, Princess Chen. The 3rd madam was about to burst into tears. She had thought that she would not get much benefit from the separation of the family this time, but because of Xiao Wanru's proposal, the 3rd branch got far more than she had imagined. At this moment, she was both grateful and sad to Xiao Wanru. 3rd aunt, you don't have to be so polite. This is our deal, but that's all, Xiao Wanru said. The 3rd madam nodded to show that she understood. What happened in the past was like a thorn in Xiao Wanru's heart. Even though it was not the 3rd madam who killed her father and mother, she could guess something and just watched it happen. In the last life, the 3rd madam had also watched her step into the death trap, hadn't she? She was not a saint. She had never been a saint. Not only was she not a saint, but she was also a cold-blooded person, and it was impossible for her to have no grudges with the 3rd madam. What they had done before was a deal, which had nothing to do with the blood relationship between the 2 branches. In fact, it was the best for the 3rd madam to separate at this time. Marquis Xing's mansion was going to sink, and anyone who had anything to do with Marquis Xing's mansion would sink. After coming out of the 3rd madam's courtyard, she did not go back to the Piaoyin courtyard directly. Instead, she went to the Chu Huan courtyard, the courtyard where her father and mother used to live. The screen wall recorded the process of her father practicing calligraphy since he was a child, and there were also traces of her father and mother living here in love, but it was just a trace. She felt sour in her nose. Everything here should have been destroyed in the last life. If Xiao Hua and moved in, he would definitely destroy everything here. With inexplicable sadness in her heart, she stood alone in front of the screen wall and raised her head for a long time. What's wrong? Chu Liuchen's voice came from behind her ears. She fell into a broad and thick arms, and the familiar breath made her feel relaxed. If Marquis Xing's mansion is destroyed, will there be anything left here? Xiao Wanru suddenly asked, still looking at the screen wall. In the whole Marquis Xing's mansion, she was most reluctant to give up. What she got was not her Piaoyuan courtyard, but this Chu Huan courtyard, which was the warmth and affection she had pursued in 2 lives. It won't be destroyed. Chu Liuchen's voice was very gentle, but inexplicably reassuring. Definitely not. Definitely not. This was not just a reply, but a confirmation. Xiao Wanru showed a smile on her face and nodded. She turned around and saw that he was alone, so she couldn't help but lean back and ask, "Where is Brother Hao?" "I asked him to go back to school," Chu Liuchen said. He took her hand and walked out slowly, but asked with a smile, "Can we go back now?" "Let's go back." Xiao Wanru nodded. The mansion was in a mess, and Zhao Shiran was very busy. Now she was the only official heroine in the inner courtyard. In the current situation, old madam couldn't make the decision at all. When the 2 of them walked out slowly, they passed by Xiao Jing's courtyard again. Xiao Wanru stopped and looked at the tall attic, which was really very conspicuous. She took a few more steps out. After taking a few steps, she suddenly stopped again and decisively took Chu Liuchen's hand and walked inside. "Your Highness, Marquis is not here. He is in another study outside. If you need help, you can go there to find Marquis." The old maid guarding the door hurriedly came up to stop them. Chu Liuchen snorted coldly. 2 guards flashed behind him and pulled the old maid away. The old maid still wanted to say something, but she was hit hard on the head and fainted on the ground. When the other servants in the courtyard saw this, they all trembled with fear and lowered their heads, for fear that the guard of Prince Chen would come forward. At first glance, they could tell that this guard was not a reasonable person. Xiao Wanru walked to the attic, gritted her teeth, and raised her head. She had always had a doubt in her heart. She inexplicably felt that this place was suspicious. She wanted to go up and have a look. She just wanted to go up and have a look. There was no reason. She just felt that if she didn't go up, she would miss something very important. This kind of feeling came inexplicably, but it was very real. It was so real that she had an inexplicable sense of urgency. She bit her lip, and the corners of her lips turned red. "Do you want to go up?" Chu Liuchen pointed up, and Xiao Wanru nodded. She quickly walked to the front of the attic, but when she reached the door, she was stunned. The door was locked by a big lock. If she wanted to go up to the attic, she had to pass through this place. However, it was locked by such a wide lock. It was impossible to get up unless she twisted the lock. "Where is the key?" Xiao Wanru asked. There was an old maid beside her who had been cleaning just now. Seeing them come over, she hurriedly lowered her head and retreated to the side. "The key is in the hands of Master. Master Ho." The old maid stammered. "No one has ever gone up here?" Xiao Wanru asked. "Few people go up. I heard that there are some sundries." The old maid didn't dare to raise her head and was very flustered. "How many years has it been since you went up?" Xiao Wanru was very disappointed. The impulse just now slowly faded. Looking at the tightly closed window of the attic above, she felt very uncomfortable as if something was pressing down on her heart. I usually don't go up. I only go up when I'm fighting, cleaning, let's go." Xiao Wanru was extremely disappointed. She looked at the window above and turned around. In fact, you can go up without the key. Seeing the reluctance in her eyes, Chu Luchen said with deep eyes.